Through the love of the divine feminine, we shall find our way back to the wisdom of the heart. Aloha, friends, shifters, light guardians, multidimensional dreamers within this beautiful holographic reality. Thank you so much for joining in once again to another live team podcast that we do here through Paradigm Shift Central, a portal for conscious creators and leaders. My name is Mystic Spider-Man, aka Skull Babylon, Wolf Shield, Brendon. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Tonight's topic, very, very powerful, very, very important topic, is going to be related to the theme of spiritual wisdom, of the divine feminine. And we have an amazing circle here tonight. And as we get into this, just quick note, apologies if the video and the audio is a little bit out of sync. We'll get that fixed as we go throughout the broadcast. But for those of you in the YouTube chat, please feel free to drop an 1111 in the chat to be able to confirm that you guys are here and that you can hear us okay. And as we get ready to roll into this broadcast, of course, I'm joined by some fellow amazing light workers, light guardians, shifters. And so for everybody here, just encouraging you in the next moment to gently unmute your microphones and let's send some noise, send some wolf howls, send some love, make some noise to all the people out there. Let's invite them into the space. So go ahead, everyone, gently unmute your microphones. And when you're ready, wolf howl, let them hear you. Beautiful. Awesome. Good job, team. All right, you guys can gently put the microphones back on mute as we get ready to roll into this. And so again, for those of you who may be new, if you're here for the first time, go ahead, drop a 333 in the chat. A reminder for everybody here who's in the YouTube chat, you guys are a part of the conversation as well. So thank you for being here. Thank you for helping hold this sacred digital space that we are creating together as a community. And so again, the bigger intention, this is about being able to create space to practice having these discussions. And these discussions, like, they are not like fruitless, you know. They are not just, oh, this is just for fun. Like, these are actually very meaningful discussions, because this is giving the opportunity for spirit, for the universe to be able to see itself, to express itself, to speak. So literally, as we have these discussions, you know, this is us, like, kind of like evolving our consciousness just by being able to share and listen and learn and to inspire one another. So the intention of this broadcast, this is about being able to create a space and to practice having these discussions related to spirituality, metaphysics, life, and to be able to, again, continue to hold space for that collective inspiration as we continue to support each other on this journey of shifters, people who are intentionally helping assist with a shift in consciousness through acts of creativity, compassion, and personal development. So if you guys are new for the first time, again, please feel free to click all the links afterwards. You can follow us on TikTok as well as the other creators. You'll find the links for them in the info down below, as well as their other social media platforms. Other quick house cleaning notes. Thank you again to our Patreon supporters. You help make these broadcasts possible. Patreon is where you can support the ongoing productions that we do for the project by joining with a monthly contribution. And if you sign up at $11 a month, you can join as a leading member, which gives you access to our private community space, access to join on air for podcasts like this in the future that we do every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, access to our private community collaborative meetings for conscious creators, access to me as a conscious media creation coach and mentor, and discounts for the shop and lots of cool stuff. So thank you to our Patreon supporters, and thank you again, everyone. And so with that said, we're going to get into this discussion. And as we do this, we're going to start off the same way we start off many of these discussion circles, is to basically be able to practice doing a little bit of meditation, to just be able to anchor ourselves in with a little bit of meditation first, and then through that meditation, just again kind of like being able to just see each other, to bring us into that heart space. And then from there we'll move into the continued discussion. So let's practice with a little bit of meditation first. So thank you again, everyone, for being here. And this is just kind of like a regular routine that we do. So we'll just do this as we just kind of invite each other into this shared vibration. So beautiful. All right. Thank you again, everyone. So with that said, just inviting everybody here to just close their eyes. When you're ready, gently begin connecting with your breath. Soft, gentle inhales and soft, gentle exhales. Finding that rhythm, feeling the moment that the inhale meets the exhale. Just take a moment here to even just straighten up your posture, open up your chest, relax your face. Give your body permission to arrive, to be present in this moment. Arrive with this breath in this moment. And so as we're breathing here, let us just bring ourselves into the space of gratitude, inviting you, if you want, gently put your hands even just over your heart. And as you do this, just taking a moment to imagine all of us, every single person tuned into this, sitting in a circle, a very special circle, a very sacred circle. You can just imagine us like sitting on the floor of a yoga studio or some sort of sacred space. Could even just be out in nature. It's up to you. But just take a moment here, focusing on the circle. And within this, just taking a moment to just imagine the different faces around this circle. Really just practicing connecting with each other energetically within this heart space. We may not physically be in the same space, but we allow ourselves to be into this shared heart space. So make room in your heart for the other people here in this circle tonight. Say hello to them. Express your gratitude and receive that gratitude in return. And so, just taking a moment here to breathe. I'm just gonna let you just be quiet just for a few moments, meaning I'll just stop talking for a few moments. And while you're in this space, just speak any words of kindness to those who have joined us here tonight in this circle. So just take a moment here in this gratitude and just be in your own silence just for a few moments. Go ahead, just take a few breaths. Be in this moment. Beautiful. So as we move into concluding this short little meditation, again, just kind of taking a moment here in the space of gratitude, thanking everyone for showing up, thanking everyone for listening, thanking everyone for simply being who they are. Beautiful. And slowly from here, we'll carry this vibration, we'll carry this gratitude with us throughout this entire discussion and beyond. And gently, when you're ready, bring your awareness back to your physical body. And slowly wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes and return your awareness to the space around you. Beautiful. All right, awesome. Welcome back, everyone. So with that said, we're going to get right into this discussion, and quick little note for anybody, if you guys haven't yet, you can always find like MP3s of this discussion afterwards. That way so you can listen to it. If you have to jump out early, you can always listen to the MP3 on the go on your mobile device. So moving into this discussion, spiritual wisdom of the divine feminine. Every time that we do these podcasts, not every time, but a lot of the time, at least within the past several months, I've kind of like approached them in this idea where I almost like don't have a full set of schedule ahead of me. Like I don't plan like 3 weeks in ahead in terms of what the podcast episode will be. And part of the reason for that is literally just because with the way the world's working right now, sometimes things are happening like so fast. And so when I approach these podcast discussions, what I've been doing, I've been intentionally basically approaching them with this question of like, what is needed? And I'll ask myself that first, like, what is needed for this week? You know, like what is needed for where we are right now in our story? And so that's why like every week it's going to be a little bit different. But for this week, when I asked myself that question, again, what came through was, oh yeah, like divine feminine. I even from my own curiosity, I would love to be able to just kind of like sit in a circle, bring together amazing people, and just kind of listen to a bit of that discussion, listen to a bit of that wisdom, because I think that's something that a lot of us need to hear right now, like even as a collective. So for tonight's discussion, what we'll do, we'll go around to the circle first and even just propose that basic question that I even posted on social media, and we'll be able to share some of the comments from social media as well, is basically, what do you think of when you think of the concept of spiritual wisdom of the divine feminine? What does that mean to you? If someone were to just ask you, oh, explain to me, what does spiritual wisdom of the divine feminine mean? What does that mean to you? And so throughout this discussion tonight, again, the intention for this is to continue to move this narrative forward. And this narrative is one of inspiration. This narrative one is self-actualization. And this narrative is also one of self-empowerment. And that self-empowerment goes hand in hand with healing. as well. So just as kind of like a preface, this discussion tonight, without fully knowing where it will go, because this really is just practice, it's really a chance for spirit to show up, understanding that, you know, I hope that through this discussion tonight, we can kind of cultivate wisdom that will help assist us within this collective healing journey. Life is one collective healing journey, and I feel that the sacred, the divine feminine carries with it a lot of that wisdom, and I think that's again why I'm like, okay, let's listen to that. So that's going to be part of the discussion tonight. And so we'll go around the circle in a second, and actually what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to start off just by adding my own little piece of my heart by sharing a little bit of some poetry. And so this is a poetry that I actually wrote on Mother's Day, so related to the specific kind of like archetype of the mother, but within this very much also about like the mother goddess, the divine feminine. So I'm going to read that, and then from there we'll pass it to the next person. And if I can actually get whoever wants to jump in next, like go ahead, put your hand up right now, and I'll pass it over that way so I can know who I'm passing it over to. So just give me an idea of who wants to be able to jump in after me first. And I know everybody's just like, who's gonna do it? Is it like you? I like see you guys. You're just like, like maybe I'll put it looks like Lily's got her hands up first. So I think Lily, Kristen, did you have her hands up too? Yeah, Kristen. Okay, so Lily, Kristen, and then we'll figure it out from there. So that's totally cool. All right, okay, so I'm gonna read my poem. Thank you again, everyone, for being here tonight. For those of you on YouTube, please feel free to just like leave your thoughts and comments as we go. Drop 1111s with things resonate. Please feel free to share this broadcast. You're part of the team. Thank you so much for showing up. Okay, here's my quick poem. and I'll just preface a big part of this discussion tonight. One of the things that I want to be able to like, when I think of the divine feminine, for me, my personal relationship is the relationship of celebrating it. Celebrating the divine feminine, worshiping it, holding it up, being like, oh, this is so cool, I love this, I love it. You know, this poem is kind of like me doing that. This is kind of like a reflection of me in my own nature, just kind of like feeling called to uphold the feminine. So here we go. So this is called Thank You Mother, but again, it definitely relates to divine feminine in general. Okay. Dear Mother, dear Mother, dear Isis, dear Gaia, dear Goddess, you are the source from which we came, the eternal light, the violet flame. For so long we've been in your arms, protecting us from the illusion of harm. Because so often we will stray, embracing the obstacles of every day to become stronger for our own sake, chiseling the rock we will create. A beautiful statue of your form, radiating your essence that keeps us warm. Your gentle kiss to our brow wakes us up to the being of now. Your soft whisper is a song, singing the patterns that keep us strong. Your branches embrace us in every moment, so let us rise up, let us own it. Our own identity of who we can be, awakening our potential, and we will see how much of us is who you are, a perfect circle, a perfect star. So let us shine that vibrant light to be a beacon of your might, to constantly grow and spiral out, to birth new courage and let go of doubt. Help us organize our thoughts and grow nutrition from that which rots, and make the most of what we got by nurturing the seeds in our lot. Our body is a temple for your domain, and though our emotions will wax and wane, let us find balance in your kiss. Your heavenly guidance leads us to bliss. Dear Mother, dear Mother. So there, that's my little poem there. I'll give myself some finger snaps for that one. That's okay. Thanks. So yeah, again, you know, like that was something I wrote for Mother's Day, but just hitting upon a big, for me, and I'll just say this and I'll pass the talking stick over to Lily. And again, you know, for me, when I think of the divine feminine, the wisdom of the divine feminine, I amongst many things, it is that of like kind of like the caregiver, the nurturer, the one who can kind of like help us feel safe in stillness. And then within that stillness, there's like a whisper. And again, this whisper, this knowledge of the divine feminine, I think is also like the knowledge of the heart. And maybe that's, and I'm even thinking about this for the first time actually. I'm like, wait a second, does this make sense? Where it's like the feminine energy is more kind of heart energy, whereas the masculine energy is more kind of mind energy. And with the shift of like 5D consciousness, a lot of it is kind of like moving from mind to heart. But again, I think it's the divine feminine masculine is that of both. So perhaps that makes sense. Perhaps the heart naturally exudes more of that feminine energy, whereas the mind more characterizes more of the male energy. Anyways, just a thought that came up in the moment, but we'll pass the talking stick around. And again, just really thanking everyone again for being here, and we'll just let the conversation unfold. So we're going to pass it over to Lilly. And Lilly, when you're ready, go ahead, gently unmute your microphone and share again when you think of spiritual wisdom and divine feminine, what do you think? So when you're ready, Lilly, go right ahead, and welcome back. And go ahead, Lilly.
Yeah. So after your poem, I was just like, I had a snap. I gave you snaps, but they were for me too to like snap out of it. I posted a silly video, like a comic, on TikTok for the broadcast, and so I thought I would stick with the theme because I have so much channeled from source that I just needed to like write something that was just funny. It was just something that came to me after. So I have a lot of this like really deep stuff. And then I just want to start it out light like a feather. And I think that actually speaks a lot to the feminine energy itself. So, um, speaking as a divine feminine rising to help shift the paradigm, I thought I'd include a little rhyme to have some fun with our time. Hey, it's cool. Most of my life I played a mime before I began to climb. When I was as sour as a lime until something very divine happened into my heart and soul. It had to be perceived by my mind. It wasn't hard to find. I just had to remember, like watching the clock unwind. It felt soft, kind. The light was enough to make one go blind, filled with love and a burning desire to be kind. Everything began to align. I wandered away without a physical soul behind. That's where the story partially ends, but also begins. Rather, when you start to read between the timelines from a higher perspective that only glows more and more divine, you'll know when it's time. Climb, brothers, sisters, climb. Oh, I
That's
got
beautiful.
snaps.
Yeah, it's plenty of snaps for Lilly there. That's awesome. Beautiful,
Thanks.
Lilly. Thank you for sharing.
So that's my first piece, and then the rest is going to be deep. I'm just preparing you.
Beautiful. Would you like to pass the talking stick now, Lily, or do you want to add
Yeah,
to
I
that?
want to
Yeah.
pass it to
Okay. Cool.
Kristen. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Perfect. All right. Thank you, Lily. And that's beautiful. Speaking of again, amazing like just energy in here. Lily and Kristen recently they just became like best friends or something when they met up in person. So they had some like divine feminine jam time. I'm
That
assuming
was
so. Connecting with nature and stuff. That's awesome. All right, Kristen, we'll pass it over to you. And then if somebody just wants to give me, can somebody just give me a quick hand up for whoever wants to go? Ashley, we'll go to Ashley next. And again, for anybody who hasn't posted their social media links in the Zoom chat, please do that. Then we can post into the YouTube chat. Kristen, we'll pass it over to you. Thank you so much, Kristen, for being here. And when you're ready, go right ahead.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to see all of your beautiful faces. I love vibing with you all. Lily, I have to say that painting looks awfully good on your wall. Thank you for putting it up. It's gorgeous. So this I cannot take credit for this. This is definitely something I found on the internet, but it is a affirmation to call in the divine feminine within. So if you would like to repeat it or I guess listen later if you can, but I'd like to say this affirmation for everybody to call the divine feminine energies in. I am someone who allows the forces of nature to love and guide me towards being a greater light in the earth realm. I now open my heart chakra to allow in the spirit of the divine feminine and to approach a situation with a spirit of allowing and patience. Something very simple, very small, but repeat as often as needed. So I guess to start, I really wanted to talk about how I've been really enjoying seeing the divine feminine energy that's related to co-creation and manifestation, and watching it just absolutely blossom and bloom with events and learning opportunities. There are so many people out there that are joining together to really bring in both that strong divine feminine and masculine energies to just create some really beautiful, powerful, touching content. And it's just been really lovely to be able to see that and experience that, along with just being able to see the creativity flowing and everybody showing their love and nurturing for each other, and really connecting with their creative sides. I see so much more art being made and music being sung and dances being done. So, yeah, just really love seeing that energy.
Awesome. Thank you, Kristen, for helping kick things off there, and thank you for that beautiful affirmation. If you want to even post that in the chat, please feel free. That'd be great. Cool. So we're gonna pass it over to Ashley. I just want to be able to just kind of like jump in with one thing that will just kind of help paint this picture here as well. One of the simplest ways that I've kind of like thought of the difference between masculine and feminine, and this is why I'm explaining this, because maybe for some people they haven't heard this, and it'll set things up even just for what Ashley could be saying. Very simply put, when I think of like, it's not when this is like more of an archetypal thing. When you think of male, you can think of like a straight line, and then when you think of females, you can think of like a curved line, or almost like the equivalent of like a sword and a cup, or a phallus and a vagina. We see this archetype kind of like all throughout all things, but what the straight line and the curved line, they differentiate even just kind of like in their patterns, and their characteristics almost. So it's like the curved line would be almost more of like the intuitive creative expression, free-flowing water-esque, just kind of like dancing, flowing, like that type of energy. Whereas the male energy by juxtaposition would be more about kind of like the analytical, the logic, A to B, brute force, I'm gonna do something, whereas again, the feminine, also in the shape of this curve, which again can also be like a cup, can be like something which is there to receive, something which is there to hold space for. And again, by juxtaposition, the male is like something that almost like penetrates by puts in. So it's like this energy. So there's different ways to create, that's just that one idea. So that's where, going back to more context for like the difference, why I was talking about the mind and the heart is very much kind of like this receiving curved energy, creative spiral energy. And then the mind would be, again, if in one sense, would be very like analytical, sort of thing. Anyways, I just wanted to share that and drop an 1111 if that makes sense, because again, one of the things we'll keep in mind even as we're doing this, we got lots of people who are tuning in who are literally like, for 3 months into their spiritual journey, or like 2 weeks into their spiritual journey. So keeping in mind that we're talking about tonight is also going to be providing mentorship for those who may be brand new to a lot of these topics. So if you're new to spirituality, drop a 777 in the chat and feel free to let us know. Ashley, I'm going to pass it over to you. Ashley, thank you so much, and please feel free to just briefly introduce yourself. I apologize, I forgot to mention that even for Kristen and Lilly. Next time you guys talk, please feel free to briefly introduce yourself, and for anybody else as well. So Ashley, passing it over to you, and when you're ready, go right ahead, Ashley.
Okie dokie. Hi, friends. My name is Ashley. I'm a divine feminine coach and womb priestess, and I'm really happy to share all the magic of the divine feminine tonight. Yes to everything you just said, Brendon. I want to point out too that part of the Holy Grail mysteries, I'm sure some of you have heard of that, it's actually a metaphor for the divine feminine. And it is incredibly cyclical in nature, being that part of that essence is realizing that many things aren't linear. If you look at time connecting to the cycles of nature, connecting to our moon time and our moon blood, and all these things that are truly cyclical. And one of the greatest essences of the divine feminine as well is feeling. So yes, the heart, connecting to the heart. Masculine is much more sequential, logical, linear, focus, definitive. features where the divine feminine is feeling, intuition, senses, wholeness. And I was actually just talking to my boyfriend the other day about even just thinking about it in terms of consciousness, this human experience and the way of how our ego is involved and individuation is very masculine in terms of defining our experience, defining it in a particular way, where when you strip back the ego, what underneath is the cosmic womb, the feminine consciousness, in that it is relaying every single element of sensory stimuli. So like when you're going on psychedelic trips, you're venturing into the feminine consciousness of all that is. And um, it's interesting. I can talk on forever, but that in many ancient religions, it was actually the universe was viewed as a woman. God was really viewed as a woman in terms that the universe birthed everything, and this creative ability to encompass, create, withhold everything that is. And so that is really where that type relays into, and as well as the void. And think about it's kind of like the underlying element of everything, the light that comes out of the darkness. And part of the divine feminine as well is wholeness, is introspection, is the nighttime connecting to the moon. And I know for me, like the biggest element that kind of threw me into embodying all these practices is when I learned to completely accept my wholeness, because then you accept the entirety of all that is. And yeah, that's all I'll say for now.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ashley, for adding those additional perspectives to the table. Wonderful. All right, we'll keep moving. Kris, you wanted to go next? Okay, who wants to go after Kris? If I can just get a scope on it. Rachel, pass it over to Rachel. It makes sense. Okay, Kris, we'll pass it over to you. And Kris actually posted a really interesting like infographic earlier in the chat. So maybe, yeah, I know Kris has got something to share. So Kris, when you're ready, go ahead, briefly introduce yourself and jump right in.
Yeah, so thank you again for, allowing me to be a part of this discussion. Yeah, I'm grateful to be in the presence of so many beautiful and intelligent, spectacular beings, and, everyone who's in this call, and everyone, who is currently watching this call and everything. So yeah, just, my name's Kris. Again, I feel like I always just get like so into the discussion that I just forget to be like, oh, this is who I am. Like I just start adding to the discussion right away. But, who I am, I guess, or the label that I am is Kris. That is my name. But essentially, I kind of wanted to go off of some of the points that Ashley was making before, which is that, so, within so many different traditions and stuff like that, there are these representations, given to, the masculine and feminine energies that are inherent within everything. And this is the principle of gender, in of itself, and how it is manifest at upon all layers of our existence, so the masculine and female principle, the duality of existence in of itself is inherent within everything. And there is this pull or magnetic attraction, which is for the I'm trying to find the right words for it, but it is essentially that the whole universe is, so within Hinduism, I'm just going to give the specific example, within that tradition, there's these ideas of the of Shiva and Shakti, these two different energies, and the energy of Shakti, you know, is that of, you know, the divine feminine. So the whole universe in of itself, like, you know, is Shakti, and it is the energy that has the ultimate aim to recognize the nature of Shiva, or, you know, the masculine principles. So, like, you know, the ultimate aim of all that is made manifest within the womb of creation, or, you know, the matrix of creation. You think about it like, you know, being this womb of creation, or, you know, like that which is um made manifest or made material, you know, like from the realm of the immaterial, you know, like it's like the whole universe itself is that the expression of that feminine energy. It is the expression of creative energy, and within that creation is held both of the forces of, you know, both the masculine and the feminine. So, like, you know, that Shakti is the personification of the universe, and that her activity is to love, while, you know, Shiva, you know, shares the state of supreme consciousness. You know, like the aim of Tantra is, you know, like the union within the duality. So, you know, like it's to create this state of, like, you know, inner union within of these masculine and feminine energies that we have within us. And, you know, it's like as above, so below. So, you know, it's like reflected in the world without as well. You know, it is that there is this balance between masculine and feminine energy. But, you know, like, again, it's like, so with the rise of the divine feminine, or how we want to call that, like, you know, and so many people have referenced that, or the wisdom that the divine feminine contains, is like, you know, this wisdom, I think, of going within, you know, to be able to cultivate these like states of consciousness within, instead of just kind of like doing so much, like, you know, being more like kind of within that masculine frame of mind, where it's just kind of like this aim to or it's like, you know, both of them are necessary. What I'm trying to say is that, like, you know, like the masculine expressed in this, I don't even want to say the word negative, but, you know, like expressed in this, like in the wounded masculine kind of energy, would be, you know, this desire to create, or would be this desire to, you know, dominate or to control others or manipulate them. So when you look at the state of the world as it is today, like, you know, you see people who are really just kind of tapped into that energy of just kind of like, you know, not being afraid to express themselves, but instead, like, you know, they're tapping into this energy of like, you know, like that they are the creator of, like, you know, this their reality, and they can basically manipulate people with that, like with that energy, instead of like being able to tap into the wisdom of the mother, which is, you know, the wisdom of creation and seeing all life as sacred. You know, and that is like this realm of, like, you know, nurturance and of love, and it's not just this realm of like that recognizing yourself as like the supreme. So it's kind of like, you know, within our society, and I know I'm talking about a bunch of things, I'm going to give up the talking stick in a second, but I just have like a lot to say, that I was kind of like, so much of this information that I'm sharing is just all kind of like really started to come up to the surface within me recently, and just like in so many of these different connected threads and stuff like that. But, you know, you see within the realm of like the powers that be, you know, how it's been more centered around, like, you know, control and dominance, and, you know, kind of this like being, and like the energy of just pure power, instead of, like, you know, and there's so many quotes. It's like, you know, when the power of love overcomes the love of power, you know, the world will know peace. I think, you know, Jimi Hendrix said that, or something like that, or someone. I don't know, there's always just so much information circulating around my head. But, you know, it's like that, you know, when the love of um yeah, when the power of love overcomes the love of power, you know, the world will know peace. So it's kind of like those who love power and love to control and exert that over others, you know, when that system can kind of crumble and fall, you know, it's like when the world can come back to this idea of, you know, being able to love and accept others, and not want to use the power that we all inherently have to control others, but rather to use the power that we have within us to love. Like, you know, that is the unification, I think. Like, you know, it is like cultivating the power of love, like, which we all inherently have within us. So, you know, it's being able to bring about, like, you know, a union between these two forces within ourselves. And then we can kind of like, you know, create that unity that we really want outwardly within the world. So that was just some of the things that I guess I wanted to share. And yeah, I guess I'll definitely talk to her about it as the conversation goes on. But yeah, I'm grateful to be here. Yeah, I love all of you.
Awesome. Thank you, Kris. Awesome, wonderful to have you here as well. Beautiful. All right, we'll keep the talking stick going. Again, like, I'm not gonna jump in too much with anything right now, because we definitely do have a lot of people to be able to share within this circle. And yeah, I just appreciate everybody being here. So yeah, we'll pass it over to Rachel next. Rachel, when you're ready, go ahead. What does tell us a little bit about the spiritual wisdom of the divine feminine. What can we learn from it? When you're ready, Rachel, go right ahead and feel free to briefly introduce yourself.
Good evening, Soul Family. My name's Rachel. I live in Portland, Oregon. I was MIA this week for anyone who's new to the team. I was kind of not in the chat, but I'm here now, so I'm happy to be here with all of you. And I had an amazing flight today, and was actually meditating on this during my flight back to Portland across the country today, and also reading a book that was extreme, like raising my consciousness every word by every like chapter. It was an incredible book, but it's kind of making it hard for me to talk about the wisdom of the divine feminine without mentioning, I mean, Kris kind of already touched on this, but that you can't have the mother without the father or the father without the mother, that they are both like this idea that there's a duality to it, that there's the divine masculine and the divine feminine, but in reality it is one and one whole being. And Ashley was actually talking about being whole with the feminine, but in order to be whole, you do need both the feminine and the masculine. And so for me, thinking about what the divine feminine means is that really touching on how things are out of balance, and Kris was kind of touching on this too, that in our society things are very out of balance and out of touch with the fact that within all of us we do have these wounded aspects of both, and that, you know, as a female, we have more of a responsibility to cultivate and heal our wounded feminine, but also to cultivate our masculine, and that we need to be able to hold space for both the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And as men, the men need to heal their wounded masculinity, but also to hold space and find the divine feminine within them as well. So really, for me, it's kind of gone in this whole bigger picture of the unity of everything, in that the mother gives rise to the father and the father gives rise to the mother, and it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? And like really the answer is neither, or both at the same time. And you can't separate the two. You can't really divide the two when it comes down to it. And like, yes, the mother might be more of like the beingness and just being and being like present and at peace, and while the male is like very much like the physical, the here, the now. But again, it's both though, because the feminine could be said to be the physical because the mother is the one that gives birth to the physical reality, but also like the masculine energy is all about this logical, like here now. So it's very hard to talk about one without the other, and even to separate the two in my mind right now because of what I've been reading and delving into. So I feel like I don't have the best take on like one versus the other, or like especially like just the divine feminine right now. But I will say I was looking out the window of the plane, looking at the clouds and just like crying tears of pure like bliss and emotion, and like thinking of the divine feminine in like even in the clouds, like the water that's in the clouds, and how it was kind of a new thought to me. Like I know Ashley with the full moon meditation had walked us through different bodies of water, and just watching the clouds, I was like, the clouds are a body of water too, and that's like another aspect of this divine feminine in like the sky. And but the father is the sky and the mother is the earth, and like, but like wait, it's both. I don't know, there's just all these other facets of it that now I'm getting all excited about this too, because I love you guys are all smiling and I love it. I love seeing your smiles. um um but I guess to kind of wrap up my point, because I feel like I'm talking in circles, because it is a very circular, cyclical thing. Like, um, you know, I guess my whole point is to break away from the duality and the idea that it has to be one or the other, and that we like to say like we are all the divine, we are all divine beings. We are get into the whole other side, like people deciding that or not even deciding, but knowing that they don't identify as either male or female, and that is this broader spectrum, um, other than just like one or the other. Like there's all these up, like the whole colors of the rainbow. Like there's the whole rainbow. Like you don't just have like black and white there. And gosh, black and white aren't even in the rainbow, the, like when you look at the rainbow, but like there's just like the full spectrum, and like it's not one or the other, and the world isn't black and white, and neither is our masculinity or femininity. It's just not black and white. I guess I'll wrap it up there because I feel like I'm talking in circles.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel, for sharing with us. And hey, I think there's nothing wrong with going in circles. I don't see it as circles. I see it more as like spirals. We're like ascending. We're like going through up and up, because that's kind of the thing, right? Like I mean, all of us have probably heard this term before, but maybe it meant something different to us 5 years ago than it does now, and maybe that's because we have a deeper relationship with it. In the same way, it might mean something different in the future as well. I'm gonna read a quick little thing here from a comment on Instagram. There's one thing I did see in the chat. Layla left this comment. Layla said, "Healing my masculine is helping my feminine so much." That's really powerful, right? Like to hear that from a woman, right? So in the same way, like hearing that from Layla, for men, absolutely, it's the same path, right? Healing their feminine is helping heal their masculine. Us helping heal our feminine is helping us hold space within ourselves for our hurt masculine, so to speak. So I'm going to read a quick thing here. This is from Fadra Shakti, who's a friend of mine on Instagram, and this is related to the question of what does their spiritual wisdom and divine feminine mean. And they write, Shakti as divine feminine in both feminine human form and also the energy that flows through the universe in beauty, something that we've been talking about. Nurturing, making love, holding space, giving shelter, offering some nectar, I like that. Juiciness, I like that too. Raw emotion, fluidity, sacred passion, sensuality, sexuality, fierceness, playfulness, healing. Shakti as primordial goddess whose powerful pull towards union with Shiva, divine masculine, is the love and divine orgasm which created our multiverse. She is the highest vibrational form of female and the integrity of mother, which is the greatest form of unconditional love. Shakti is pure unconditional love for her lover and beloved Shiva, who is pure God in tangible form. So what I think is really interesting is when we start looking at this question of, like, what is the divine feminine? One of the great ways that we can do this is actually to look at history and to look at culture and to look at their representations of the icons that held this energy, the gods, the goddesses, the demigods, etc., etc. So when you look at all this, you can start to see, again, kind of like these common archetypes. And absolutely, just kind of saying something real quick, and then I'll pass it over. Who am I passing it to? Did we already figure this out yet? Someone put your hand up. David, or we'll pass it. Lauren or David, you guys can figure out who wants to go next. You put your hand up at the same time. Okay, we'll figure it out. But what I was going to say, there's two things. One thing I really want to say, which is really, really cool, but just kind of establishing one thing that we already talked about, undeniably, like what we recognize as divine feminine, what we recognize as divine masculine are just like sides of a spectrum, but essentially it's masculine, feminine, divine masculine, feminine. It's one thing. And we see things within it, and then even within like the other ends of the spectrum, there's like other spectrums. So that's where like within the divine feminine you have this like very like calming and gentle and nurturing energy, but at the same time, literally within the divine feminine, you also have this fierceness, this like warrior, this battle type energy in itself, right? And one of the things that I think is really interesting, and I'll just say this, and then I got one more thing real quick. For me, I remember piecing this together way back when I was younger, when I was like figuring out things about like the growth of a child. And one of the things that always fascinated me was basically that like babies like begin as female by default, and then they become male like as like the staging process goes on. So it's like, wait a second, like even when I was younger, I'm like, okay, so basically that's saying is that like woman is like the original human, so to speak, and then males are just kind of like a modified version of that sort of thing. And then you can see this within the anatomy. I remember my friend, and this is just kind of like for smiles, my friend like literally did a speech back in high school that won an award, and it was basically about like why men have nipples. And basically this is where I learned it from, and because it went back to the idea that the nipples actually developed before gender was determined, and now we just ended up, hey, we can still use them for something, right? Like you'll find a reason for them. There's not to say they're pointless, but anyways, I just found it funny. And the other thing I'll just say real quick, you can't spell woman without omen. And when you think about that I know literally just saying that for some of us that could be a paradigm shift. We're just like, what? Like somehow I didn't notice that. But my point there, the word omen literally means like, you know, like forbearing. It literally means kind of like a vision of the future, something that which is slightly ahead. So for me, when I see the word woman and I see the word omen, it's kind of again going back to this idea of something we've been talking about, where it's like women are actually leading the way. Like women are they carry with them the wisdom of the omen. They carry with them the foresight. So that's where I think right now on a collective level, we've been seeing this divine feminine. We are seeing this divine rising of the feminine, so that the divine rising of the feminine can also help with the divine healing of the masculine as well. And yeah, like literally divine healing. I didn't even mean to say that. I meant to say healing of the divine masculine, but like divine healing is kind of essentially what it is that both of us are being called into. And I know we'll be able to talk more about that as we go, but that's all I wanted to say. So you can't spell woman without omen. Someone put that on a t-shirt, please. We'll pass it over. Lauren, pass it over to you. Is that what we figured out? Or, yeah, okay, cool. All right, so Lauren, please feel free to briefly introduce yourself. Lauren is one of our newer leading members, so thank you, Lauren, for joining. And when you're ready, go right ahead.
Of course, nice to virtually meet you all. Hello. My name is Lauren Bruno, and I'm a hypnotherapist in Connecticut. And I'm so excited to meet you guys and talk about divine feminine. So the divine feminine, it's a portal, really, right, between the spiritual realm and this realm. And it, as Ashley spoke, like it's circular time. So infinity, it's the infinity symbol, and that's really what I think about when I do think about the divine feminine, is creation and collaboration and spreading our energy to each other in circular ways instead of, using more of our emotion and our intuition. And I loved how you said, Brendon, the heart versus the mind, the logic versus the emotion, because it really is it's our heart space and our intuition decisions, of our feelings of emotion versus logic. Um, Negating the chaos. Just, I feel like the divine feminine is gentle and empathetic and can listen versus need to speak constantly. Um, and as a hypnotherapist, I work a lot with the right versus the left brain. So I like to think of the masculine a little bit as our left brain and the right brain as the feminine. And it's all a spectrum. We all have a certain amount of balance of our masculine and feminine energies. And it's healing those wounds, it's healing those traumas in both of our masculine and our feminine energies. And that's basically really all I have to say. But it's so nice to meet you guys.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you, Lauren, so much for joining and for adding your voice. And yeah, thank you again, everyone, as we continue to roll through this discussion. So I assume, David, pass it over to you next. Yeah? Can you give me a thumbs up on that? Yep. Okay, cool. All right, so passing over to David. David is another one of our newer leading members. So David, thank you so much for being here. Go ahead, briefly introduce yourself, and when you're ready to go right ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm David. I'm new. I'm very excited to meet everybody. This has been very cool. I'm gonna try not to be too excited because I'm on a 12 right now. This is pretty fucking dope. Freaking dope. Okay. Divine feminine. I loved what you were just saying, actually, Lauren, about it feels like we're experiencing like a normalization of intuition. Like it's by far becoming this sort of go-to. Like we're all collectively starting to begin to accept that like there's something else here, and it feels like it's popping up in the self-help space and popping up in the spiritual space, and even in like a traditional religious space. It's like when people start to look deeper into these long-held beliefs and really embrace this femininity, the womb of long-held beliefs, it's really opening some things up in a really, really cool way. A thing that came up earlier actually was how I guess the balancing of that divine feminine has been really helpful in our just belief systems as a whole, and our ability to get out of our either or thinking. I don't know who said that earlier, but just jumping out of that either or space. And it seems like, with obviously even non-binary people and everybody is just understanding that sexuality is a spectrum, gender, and it's all opened up to this idea that it's much more accepting of everything and everybody, and it really makes me excited because I think it means we have to start or are going to start like just holding more space by healing these spaces like within us. Just for me personally, like a personal journey, like a big personal journey of mine was definitely beginning to understand like the nature of divine femininity and how that manifests in my life, and just being able to accept that. I think that toxic like headspace that you're not even aware of is a constant. You didn't develop toxically masculine traits overnight. So being able to constantly investigate that and become curious about that is really great. But a big shift for me was understanding I'm in a twin flame relationship too, and I'm the feminine partner. Like, and that has really done a huge, a huge thing for me, because it shows up in very, I guess it's a joke. I hope she's not listening. We joke all the time because I'm like, wow, I really get like what it's like to be like a 50s stereotype housewife. Like that is like the vibe that I deal with a lot. And like it's really interesting learning to accept like, oh man, maybe some of these stereotypes come from somewhere. Oh, okay, I could see how somebody could maybe react this way or be disempowered because of like the femininity of an idea, when you start to think, when you're not so logical. Like my wife is like very she is the hardcore logic, and being able to accept the difference, that we're different, like identical in nature but I guess different in degree, and not try to change each other and give up the need to be right, has really been just one of the most glorious experiences, because it's really helped me also like heal the masculine as well as the feminine, and realize that both of those things need to be balanced in order for me to show up as whole for her. It's really one of the best relationships. It's like the best thing ever, and it took us a long time because when those energies are spinning separately, like in the beginning of most, I think even Brendon had a thing in his twin flame video or something, but like when those twin flames like first pop off, it's combustible. So the fact that we've come together now, and it's become such a great relationship, has been really helpful. But it really I think that's really what we're all sort of doing with the divine feminine right now, and it just makes me really excited to see how it just manifests everywhere. So that's all I got, guys.
Awesome. Sweet. Thank you, David, for adding your excitement to this topic. Appreciate you being here, man. That's awesome. Sweet. All right. Okay. So can I just get an idea? Who am I passing it to next? Because if I'm not mistaken, I think we've gone through the circle. Oh, hold on. Okay, David's joining. Okay. All right. Okay. So we're gonna keep going here. I'm gonna read some of the comments that were posted on Instagram earlier, and just be able to add some additional voices. And even for the people who are here, if you guys want to, if you haven't yet, please feel free to leave some quick comments right now in the chat, and I'll read them by the time I get through the comments on Instagram, of what does divine, the spiritual wisdom of divine feminine, what does it mean to you? So if you want to be able to share that as well. So I'm just going to read the comments here. Actually, maybe there's not as many as I thought, or actually no, the other ones are on TikTok, so I'll have to check those out in a second. So Paula, and again, this is going back to comments that were left on the Instagram post that I put up with this question. Paula says, spiritual wisdom of divine feminine is the wisdom of being instead of doing, of surrender and acceptance instead of control and resistance. I like that. That's very cool. It's kind of like, when you look at like nature does what it does. Nature in itself is a very feminine energy, and when you just let it be, it just kind of continues to unfold. So that is like one of the teachings of the spiritual wisdom of the divine feminine, I would say, is being able to kind of like surrender and trust a higher process, much like a nature would unfold. David says, for me, it's the expansion of self and mind for becoming well-rounded in the human experience of understanding one another. Full circle. Beautiful. I'll read some more comments as we go through in the chat. They might not be in here right away, but we do have David who is in here. So David, thank you for joining in. And we are already gone through the circle once. So if you're ready, give me a thumbs up, because I can pass it over to you just to be able to share some thoughts on the spiritual wisdom of divine feminine. Again, just when you think that, when someone asks you about that term, what do you think? How would you explain it? So David, passing it over to you, dude, and thank you for being here. And when you're ready, go right ahead. And feel free to briefly introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is David Blair. I'm Kristen's brother, and you may see my daughter walking around in the background. So her name is Zelda. Just kind of enjoy watching what she does. I've thought that this divine feminine really resonated with me because it's something that I've recently struggled with a lot lately. I'd been so focused on being the masculine, being the provider for the family, bringing home the money, being able to take care of the family, and doing all the sacrifices that come entailing with that. So I was sacrificing time with my family, not being able to be there or even really be the provider. And I was just so caught up in, like I said, just taking care of the masculine side that I was kind of neglecting the feminine, and it was getting very, very out of whack. And so I had taken a couple weeks off the last couple weeks and was able to reconnect with that. And it was really good being able to find that balance between being the nurturing, caring side, as well as still being the protector and the provider, and still being that masculine side, but understanding that there is a feminine side that needs to be balanced with it all and brought into everything. Like, for example, this one right here, I enjoy being a stay-at-home dad for, well, that's not you on a pen. But so yeah, like I said, just everything that y'all were saying really resonated with me as far as being able to balance the masculine and feminine together. It is a yin and a yang between the two. You can't just focus all of your time on one versus the other. And like, I apologize, I do not recall who it was that said it, but I think actually, yeah, it was you, Brendon. As you look throughout our human histories throughout time, the mother figure has always been kind of like the all being that they all revered. All of our ancient cultures would spend a lot of time focusing on the feminine and the nurturing side of things, and knowing that it is important to put that focus in. So yeah, that was all that I had to say. Like I said, it really resonated with me, and with my recent processes that I've been going through. It really resonated with me.
Awesome. David, thank you so much for sharing, and thank you again for Zelda for helping out as well. So thank you to Zelda for helping out as well, I was saying. So beautiful. You guys are quite the team. And David actually helped facilitate the morning meditation this morning as well. So that was beautiful, David. Thank you again for that. Beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to jump in with a couple thoughts here. I know Felicia, if you want to jump on air, just let me know, because I just need you to like turn on the video, just because I can't see it otherwise. But let me know, even just in the chat, when you're ready to jump in. And so one of the things I was going to say. So again, we've kind of put a lot of stuff on the table right now. So let's just kind of like take a moment to really reflect. What can we extract from this conversation? What can we bring to the front of our mind? And so again, like when you look at the world and everything right now, what's happening, there's a lot of healing that has taken place. And how does the feminine energy actually relate to this? I think in a lot of ways, the feminine energy is actually guiding this. And one thing about the feminine energy that I think is very interesting, and I'll just say this, and then Felicia, give me a thumbs up if you're ready, and I'll pass it over to you in a second. And this again, like this was kind of already said earlier, but I just want to practice saying it, because I still feel like this is like a paradigm shift here. What I'm about to say right here, like this is like a little paradigm shift, because we don't normally think about it this way. From the way I can see it, when we think of the divine feminine energy, we are also talking again about kind of like the going in. We are talking about the womb. We are talking about the darkness. We are talking about the shadow as well. And so like that's kind of an interesting thing, because it's like, wait a second, what? Like feminine energy is associated with the shadow? Like what does that mean, right? But again, I think it's not just the shadow of like, ooh, like that's where the scary things hide. That's where the unconscious resides. That's part of it. But it's within the shadow that we also get to sit with that which is not seen. We also get to like sit with the unprocessed parts of ourselves. We also get to be able to listen. Again, this is where it was kind of already mentioned, the idea that like the feminine energy has a lot to do with kind of like the hermit, this hermetic aspect of introspection, know thyself. So I think it is just kind of interesting that, again, like just that concept. Like we don't usually think of like, oh, like this, a lot of people just even in mainstream culture are kind of in this process where they see shadow and they almost want to push it away. Like if it pops out at them, their instinct is almost to push it away. But I think the feminine energy is actually the part within our heart that is like, what happens when we meet that shadow? How do we meet that shadow? What happens when we kind of like shine the light of our own consciousness and change the relationship with that shadow in itself? So again, I think when I think of the divine feminine, I think of like deep tales of healing that come through really being able to see ourselves and really being able to kind of like heal without shame. Like because I think like shame is a very masculine energy, maybe, like, because again it's kind of like, it's like separation, get away from me, put you over there. What is the opposite of shame? Someone tell me in the chat, what is the opposite of shame if we're talking about healing? Because I think, again, you know, like instead of just calling people out, the feminine energy would to call people in, you know. And so like this process of kind of like approaching things where I think a lot of the healing that can be taking place within this world right now is kind of that healing of, again, almost like this motherly archetype where imagine it's like a younger child and they kind of do something and you're kind of fierce with them to begin with because they need to make sure that the message comes across. But then it's just kind of like, come here, like I'm going to hold you and I'm going to just kind of like hold you like up. I'm going to hold you into a place of accountability because I know you're better than this. And I'm not going to shame you, even though you did something stupid, even though you did something you weren't supposed to, even though you did something I asked you not to. Again, you know, this is like a mother to a child and stuff like that. I still want the best for you because I love you. And so let me help you by calling you in, by bringing you into the shadow of my own hug. And within that shadow, again, there is a healing, there's a nurturing. How can we kind of like, again, do that within ourselves, do that within others? And I think, I was mentioning this to a friend earlier, and I'll just say it here, and you guys let me know if this resonates, but somebody else said it, and then I just reiterate it because I'm like, ooh, that resonated with me. But it's basically this idea that right now, like people, this is relatively speaking, in a collective level, like it is challenging for people to heal something that they have not healed within themselves, so to speak. So until you acknowledge that whatever you're trying to heal is actually in you, it's going to be a constant war of you versus the other, you versus something separate from you, until you kind of change the narrative where it's like understanding that you are all that. And so whatever shadow you may be trying to heal, how do you heal it within yourself? And when you do that, that allows you to show up and to heal it. So again, I think the divine feminine is this very powerful energy right now. And I know there's many angles to kind of continue to talk about this, but I do see this kind of like this evolution within our ability to be able to heal, so to speak, you know, because like it's if you think of like the kind of archetypal of like an angry masculine or something like that, it's like punishments, you know. But then like the feminine energy, there's a different style to it, there's a different archetype to it. What does that look like, and how does that relate within our interpersonal lives? How does that relate within the collective? How does that change going forward? You know, like how like we're in a very, very transformative period right now, but what would it happen for a society to be able to be like birthed out of the divine feminine energy? And if you want to know what that looks like, look to the lot of natives, look to a lot of Aboriginal, look to a lot of traditional cultures that have that as a foundation of their society, you know, where it's like, again, if someone has done a crime or something like that, they do that, they call them in, you know, or they might like kind of like sometimes they'll like send them out on like a vision quest. They'll like, if they do kick them out, it's like to kick them out with the intention that they come back transformed or something like that, to go meet the mother outside themselves or something like that. But yeah, again, I think there's so much that the feminine is teaching, and I'm seeing it rising more and more. I'm seeing it being something where more masculine people, more men, people who identify as male, are kind of like tapping into more of this intuitive heart space, this intuitive knowing, this gentleness, this joy of expression, this joy of creation. Because even when you look at like, again, kind of the cliches, it's like, oh, boys shouldn't boys shouldn't make art, boys shouldn't dance, boys shouldn't do silly things and stuff like that, right? Like, so you can see where there's like kind of like this wounding from the masculine side, of like the suppression of the feminine side from within us. But then more and more of us males are like, wait a second, like what's wrong with creating? Like I love creating. What's wrong with dancing? I love dancing. What's wrong with creating art? I love creating art. What's wrong with like, you know, being a very like romantic, gentle, kind person, in that sense. So there's that that's happening. And then at the same time, again, like the feminine, the divine feminine is again kind of like this divine feminine that carries with it, that is kind of like it has it, again, that's where like I think this fierceness is neither male nor female. Like I think it's ubiquitous. But I love seeing again kind of like the warrior archetype that is within both, that is within each, and we each kind of carry that in a unique but similar way. So I would say, you know, I'll just say this and I'll pass it to Felicia. With where we're going right now, masculine, feminine, call it what you will, but I think if both can meet somewhere in the middle as this archetype of like guardian healers, if we can adapt that, you know, like this warrior healer archetype, I think that archetype, because that archetype is literally the integration of both. It is the integration of like a divine masculine, divine feminine, kind of like a synergy as well. So again, you know, it's something that we are all continuing to learn. We're all invited to be able to reflect more on that question. And again, that's why we're here to have this discussion tonight, to be able to talk about what it means to us and, you know, how we're carrying this story forward through our own personal transformation. Felicia, give me a thumbs up if you're ready. I'll pass it over to you. Okay, cool. So Felicia, when you're ready, pass it over to you. Gently, please feel free to briefly introduce yourself, and when you're ready, go right ahead.
Trying to hold my train of thought before I introduce myself. Okay, I'm Felicia, also known as Phoenix sometimes, and I don't really know what to say in these introductions because I'm also realizing.
Oh, hold on. Felicia's technology might be pausing for a second. We'll just make sure in a second here, but we'll pass it back to her if she might have dropped out. So, okay. All right. Okay. If someone else is ready to jump in, Rachel, I'll pass it over to you, and then once we hear back from Felicia, we'll pass it over to Felicia. Go ahead, Rachel. Even like I'd be curious, even Rachel, if anything I said like resonated with you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was hoping to respond to what you were just talking about because, in particular, you mentioned like the masculine and those who identify as male, and this is going back to kind of what I said before, but just the idea that like the divine masculine and divine feminine are genderless. Like they don't prescribe to a particular gender. It is like the divine masculine, divine feminine is not male and female. Those are two completely separate concepts. And like, I mean, well, it's all connected, of course, but like it, yes, we want to like the constructs of society tell us that as a male you are more divinely masculine, or as a female you're more divinely feminine. But with the gender roles and gender constructs that are coming about in our society, that people are saying like, no, we don't subscribe to that because it is a construct. And actually, in the comments here, not having this actually said that, one of the people in the comments on the YouTube said it's a social constructs anyways. Calling like something feminine or masculine is social conditioning. And that's like going back to like the history of our world and the history of how things have developed to be the way they are. It is very much like you have to look at all of the history and how things came about to be this way. In that, like, yes, at one point the feminine was very much revered and looked up to, but also like it goes in cycles. It's like the taiji, if any, I mean, I don't know if everyone's familiar with the taiji, but the yin and yang, the symbol where it's black and white with the small black within the large white and the small white within the large black. And that symbol, even though it's yin and yang, it's not a duality. That is a circle to represent that it's the whole, and you need both. And it was interesting, Lauren, actually, this was going way back to what Lauren said about the right brain being feminine and the left brain being masculine. That actually very much makes sense with yin yang theory, which is just very interesting to me. I'm a student of acupuncture and oriental medicine, for those who don't know that. So this is why I'm very much attaching to this philosophy and theory of yin and yang, because that's something that I resonate with from my schooling. But yin and yang are attributed to masculine and feminine energies, but it's not male and female. It's just the masculine and feminine energies. That feminine is this greater yin, and then the masculine is this greater yang. And yin and yang are like, they are this duality, but like, again, it's the greater, and then there's the lesser, and then so like there's yin within yang and yang within yin. So again, like the divine feminine really, again, can't exist without the divine masculine. And we all need to heal both within all of us. And this idea that it's one, like you were saying, Brendon, like the other, like something outside of ourselves. And again, you also mentioned like looking to heal something, and not like we can't heal something we haven't healed within ourselves. And just thinking of like, people always want to tell you that you need to go to the doctor to make you better, like that the doctor can fix you, and like like if you go to get healing, that the healer is going to heal you. But we are all healers, and we've talked about this in other synergy circles too, that we are all the healers. We all heal ourselves. We can't look to any outside source to heal us, and no one can tell us what healing is correct for us. Only we can determine that for ourselves. And so we have to learn the lessons in our own way, in our own lives. And so even having this discussion, like I feel like you say this all the time too, Brendon, just like, you know, take it for what you take it as, and like think for yourself about it. Don't like take our word as gospel by any means. Like just like each of us has to determine what makes sense for us, and what is like, so like asking what the divine feminine means to each of us, it's going to mean something different to each of us, because we're all individuals, but at the same time we're all that one connected source consciousness. So like talking about the dualities, it is so important to say like it's not a duality, it's entwined, so entwined that having this conversation, like I was saying, it, you even said it was more of a spiral than a circle, and it is, because it's spiraling deeper into this deeper understanding and knowledge of the more surface level things that we've been talking about, and understanding that like while there is the surface level of like the dualities of the two, that as you spiral deeper and deeper, you can't separate the two anymore. It becomes so enmeshed that it's not one or the other, but both. So again, I feel like I went back and talked in spirals again, or circles, spirals, but anyway.
Must be doing something right then. So
feminine, right?
there you go. Yeah, divine feminine in action right here. So like it's just a tapestry unfolding. That's how I see it. So cool, awesome. Rachel, was there anything else, or you're good? You're good. Okay, cool. All right, thanks, Rachel. All right, okay. Give me a thumbs up for fingers in the air, whoever wants to go next, and I'll pass it. Is that Lilly? Is your hand up? Lilly, and then Kristen. We'll kind of go back in that cycle again, and then again, Lauren, David. You guys let me know when you're ready to jump in as well. I was just gonna. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I was kind of like, even during going into this discussion, I was kind of like thinking, I'm like, okay, I want to be able to like bring some questions, like to kind of like ask the divine feminine within the presence of the people within the broadcast. And you know, one of the questions, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the question to be answered right this second, but it is that kind of question, you know, like from the wisdom of the divine feminine, like how do we heal? You know, that could be one question. And then there's many other questions. But undeniably, again, I think where we are right now is just kind of like this collective story of healing. And yeah, it's a very, very powerful thing. And I think, again, the wisdom of the divine feminine is pivotal to being able to understand how we heal. So Lilly, if you're ready, we will pass it over to you, and go ahead and gently unmute your microphone. And if you wanted to briefly introduce yourself, Lilly, I know you didn't on the first time around, go right ahead.
Hi, I know I just kind of was my authentic self as always. I'm Lilly. I love you so much. My screen name is my Instagram. Please, my account's private, but if you send me, I'll recognize you. So I'll add you. All right. So I kind of really feel called. I just feel called to thank everybody right now for sharing this space and having the bravery and the boldness, and even the people in the chat leaving those very powerful messages to engage our minds as a collective team here before you, and just, expressing our views and our own personal journeys. But then there are similarities, and then every broadcast is different. Like, you can be prepared all you want, but like spirit leads, so you have to just be able to go with the flow. So luckily I had wrote down how to heal out my take on divine feminine. It was like a new note. Like, I feel like I should share this. And then you talked about healing, and I didn't at first actually like register, to be honest, that it was like a healing technique. I'm like, common sense. I don't know, but maybe it's bad wording. But like, with the divine feminine energy, we are really being blessed right now, and I hope that we get blessed with a round of divine masculine energy too. I think if we do a really good job with this, there's a lot of time to go in right now with everything going on in the world, and I'm not one for coincidences or asking too many questions. So everything is happening for a divine reason. When you're able to see it from a higher perspective, you no longer have the 3D like knee jerk reaction. Okay. So I don't really like to use those terms, but I don't know how else to say it. Like, higher frequency, lower frequency, like, as long as we hold our frequency without judgment, without shame, without anything but the sovereign unity with source of beings. Okay, that's it. If someone wants to get in a dispute with you, like they're you're having a conversation, like, don't regress and get on that lower vibration with them. This is the time now to be the bigger person. This is the time now to shine, because the divine feminine speaks louder when we're silent. And when it's silent for the divine feminine, it's because we seem to channel how much more we are. It's so like naturally almost empath, definitely relate to Mother Gaia. We're just feminine in the feminine nature of the world. So I think it's no surprise that part of the conditioning has been to suppress the male feelings. Now, why? Because you can't reach your highest potential until you do. And vice versa for girls. Okay, we're really encouraged on the opposite scale. We're really encouraged to be feminine, be a lady. Like, we're getting pumped up on our side. They're getting like told, be strong, don't show emotion. And you're like getting treats for crying. Like, it's kind of like, different. And in Men Are from Mars, Women from Venus, think of it how you like. I'm going to try to transmit this with as much light so that you can see what I have in sight here. We need to break the suppression. Like, speaking as a divine feminine, I've really had my energy rising. And one of the things that I realized was a lesson. And, it was actually someone I cared about who pointed it out to me and said, like, you don't have to complain about it. Because like, I was doing all these good things, right? And like, not doing, just doing, but like inside work, you know what I mean? Like, working with source, creating, like, on my spiritual path, doing my like everything that is me, being true to me to get to my highest self. Okay. And divine femininity is crucial and key. And even as women, like, it doesn't mean that it comes with a rule book, and it doesn't come with a rule book for men. Men have, like, mankind has made these things that have been suppressed inside, and like we need to break it. Like the more you guys talk about it, I know if I was watching like a divine male, I would want an insight from a guy. I'd be like, okay, I want to spy a little bit, so how can I learn and grow? So to get a little bit of insight, and break what's been suppressed, girls, it's for us too, because you can use your divine feminine energy for good or for bad. And I have like a whole college essay on it, but let me just break it down really simply. Um, it's it's as simple as break the suppression, feel blessed, like feel blessed for the time, feel blessed for any emotions, like embrace them, each and every one. Okay. Welcome it. Like if you even have to picture like doubt as a like draw a doodle, and like that's what doubt looks like. And when you're in meditation, you talk to doubt. Like I don't care. Okay. But like try to start thinking outside the box, outside the comfort zone. And like I said, women, we have to work on it too, because again, we're really taught to amp it up. So like manipulation can be something that a woman, a divine feminine, she can be divine feminine, but if she's manipulating with it or controlling with it, because what can happen when the divine feminine energy is out of whack, and this is healing women right now, or those that identify with women right now, for the divine feminine energy, if it's not controlled right, it will reflect in some lower frequencies, like lower vibrations. Like your thoughts are, and I've been there, no judgment. Like I remember, I kind of want to refer back to my paper just because of my nerves, but I want to fight through it. It's practice. Okay. Can you remind me, Brendon, what I was just talking about? Because I completely lost my train of thought.
Sorry, I was doing two things at once. So somebody else want to be able to summarize what Lilly was summarizing? Kristen, go ahead.
The last part. Anybody taking notes?
Kristen, jump in. You got that psychic connection going
Lilly,
on.
oh, absolutely. Everything you just said resonates so loudly. Holding that high vibration and just really doing what you can to let go of what no longer serves you with love and respect on both ends. Speaking of healing and connecting with that divine feminine energy, it's really been lovely to be able to utilize it during, especially we see a lot of shadow work and inner child work right now, and being able to connect with that nurturing, non-judgmental side, that whenever you're working through these healing processes, it's really important to be able to come at it from a place of love and non-judgment, so that way you can feel it to heal it, right? And also just kind of being able to call in that ability to take those steps with blind faith, and being blind faith in more of like following your intuition and trusting that your gut and that um, that your gut and your intuition is going to lead you on the right path. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Lilly. You're
okay. So on both sides, and so it looks pretty low vibration when girls are using it the wrong way. When you're using it the right way, it is the most beautiful gift you can give to anyone. It raises the male's kundalini, which then brings out the masculine, which then it takes a zing between there's no yin without the yang. It's a whole complete package. And so like there's like it's a very intricate web that has been weaved. To summarize, as an artist, like just think of a very, very detailed, like intertwined web this world has woven. And by remaining on a higher frequency, which women tend to be, because we come from our hearts, okay, which is like 5D. So we come at the world through our hearts. And so we're naturally given those nurturing. I mean, if you resonate as a female, and if you don't, and you're a woman, and you're struggling, like, why don't I have a nurturing capability? Why don't I want children? Like, hey, it's okay. It's okay. Like, big spectrum here. Everyone has time. It's okay. Like, don't like have to pace yourself. Like, don't be hard on yourself. Okay. And that's how you heal too. Okay. You don't heal when you already have bumps and bruises and then you start hitting yourself on top of them. Like, no, you nurture them, you love them, you heal them because you love that part of you. Okay. And like that intuition lives between source and in between the flesh. And men have been kudoed for their intellect, because the one thing that the masculine energy brings is a lot of intellect. And that's brought to the table, and they've been rewarded, but how they get their intellect is based on past experiences. So that's where their facts come from, other people and other programs. So intuition, like conscience, has the word science in it for a reason. Okay. And because it is a science, and gratitude will get you so far. So just take a deep look inside, really, really like get in that web, because we all have one consciousness. And by doing it for yourself, I promise you, it really is helping all of us break, disperse, um, disperse this. Like, it's so needed. The warrior spirit, like, is definitely part of the divine feminine. You have that warrior spirit inside, like, and the card in the tarot deck that it's represented by is death. But like, I associate death as rebirth and like as a good thing. And I've had an NDE, and I absolutely have no qualms with death. And I think that your heart's good. Like, if you can go to sleep and be like, oh, I don't worry if I die. Like, that's a good, peaceful feeling to have. So check. And keep a dream journal, because that's going to help with creativity. As divine feminine, we bring in that creativity. So kudos, guys. Keep creating. And you know what's so funny is you guys are taught to like not do it, but like girls think it's the cutest thing. Little secret, okay? We adore it. We want you to do it. We want you to paint with us and all those fun things. Okay, you get it. Okay, we just don't tell you. We're just hoping that you pick it up. Like, can't you feel it? So a little gap there I want to point out. So the warrior card, the death card, it lends itself to drastic changes. It's not just waiting for something to happen, but rather it's getting out of your comfort zone, like all superheroes do, owning your own truth, starting to build a bridge, if you will, towards alignment with your authentic true self and nature as well. Because after all, divine feminine energy is the ultimate creative energy force. When things go to shift, the divine feminine can see the lessons in it. By using this divine energy to accept hardships will come and go, and learn to grow by identifying the lessons without lowering her vibration. His or her vibration. On the path of becoming a divine feminine, the universe sends obstacles to use as opportunities for our highest good. So long as we see it from a higher perspective, these challenges are part of the lesson, because the key is to acknowledge, accept, remain in the higher frequency, to see the possibility, and seek out the lesson. You never lose your free will. That doesn't take it away, guys, okay? Always have it. So use it when you need to. The divine feminine always is seeking to evolve. Always. That's why we want babies. That's why we want to multiply. Like, we want an abundance. She's like, we are just like, we like to change, evolve. We change our hair, we do our nails. Like it's in our nature, and nature is always different flowers and different seasons. And even when we have our cycles as women, just real quickly, and then I'm going to stop hogging. But yeah, I write much better than I just speak on my own. I'm getting better at that, and it's all just practice. But to like everybody right here, like I'm just so proud that everyone seems to be on the same page, and I just wanted to just share my gratitude and just remember. Okay, I'm going to end it with Albert Einstein. He said, and I quote, "Imagination is more important than knowledge." And I believe it to be unifying and very powerful when used from within sources, not just the external tools to create art. It takes a spark from a woman and a spark from a man to create life in this dimension. Life is the ultimate creation with Mother Earth. I can't say enough how much keeping a dream journal can help with the creative flow. In fact, it's been a tried and true method for some time now. Speaking on my own behalf, too, since the topic is based off a spiritual wisdom of the divine feminine. So, when speaking in terms of creation, we know this is speaking towards a bigger picture to explore. Females are the only vessels on this planet that can plant a seed inside and through a gestational period birth life. This is true all through the animal kingdom. So you really, I mean, I could keep going, but I'm not. It's really majestic. My battery's running low on my laptop, so I'm going to pass. Sorry if I took too long.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Lily,
I'm
so
sorry.
much, and wonderful job, Lily. Lily has been with us for a while.
I got
and
a lot
you
today,
did
so I was like,
great
how can
today.
I?
That was awesome. Good job. All right.
Hey.
Cool. Okay, so let me just get an idea of who's gonna take the talking stick next. David, and then okay, David, then Ashley, or unless you guys want to decide who wants to go next. So there's just one thing that I was just kind of reflecting back on my question in general of, you know, like what is the process of healing and things like that. I also just kind of want to ask a question to again kind of like the feminine energy, the divine feminine energy that is literally right here with us in this chat. You know, like each one of us is literally a channel for that voice, that voice of the wisdom of again, you know, like the divine feminine, which again is kind of like this heart wisdom or this higher dimensional wisdom, this 5D consciousness wisdom, which again I think is a beautiful way of seeing it. Whereas like the male is again almost like this part that separates from the divine feminine, and with that is kind of like the part that kind of like forgets it's part of the whole but then has to find its way back. So the male is again kind of associated with kind of like a lot more of the shadow and stuff like that, but again that arises in everyone. But what I was going to ask, literally the divine feminine here, and if you guys want to practice answering this, please do. And it's literally the question of like what is needed, like what do you need right now, what can we do as divine masculine, as culture, what do you feel is needed right now? You know, give us like we are listening, tell us what you feel is needed, both from you know female to female, but also from male to female as well, from those varying sides of the spectrum and everything like that. And it was interesting because there was one comment here, it was from Lise in the chat, and it was literally just talking about how within their boyfriend's family they don't talk about their feelings, and so again this idea of like seeing this a lot. I'm sure some of us probably had experiences with this, you know, be it through our personal families or even be it through like members of our family. Like I can say for myself, like my dad just doesn't really talk about his feelings that much. Not to say he doesn't have them, but he just doesn't talk about them. And that's okay with me. I'm like, all right, you know, that's just his style. That's okay. I respect that. But at the same time, you know, that's probably a result as like his upbringing, probably, you know, in an earlier period where it just was never really encouraged, right? So it never became a habit. So what would it be like if males were again kind of not only encouraged to be able to process their feelings and to connect with their feelings, but also to be able to communicate their feelings? And so on behalf of, as much as I can represent the divine masculine, to do my best to kind of like tap into that wisdom within my heart, as all of us can, one thing that I just wanted to be able to share, because I feel this is a very, very, very powerful piece of wisdom, and I'd love to be able to hear your thoughts on that for anybody here. But going back to my question of like, you know, what is like, how do we heal and everything like that, I would say on behalf of the divine masculine, if I was speaking the divine feminine, I would be like, you know what would be really, really helpful for the healing of the divine masculine right now? If the divine feminine could listen to the divine masculine and preface that in the context of like literally listen to them speak about the things that they don't normally get a chance to speak about. I'm not saying like, oh, listen to me give you instructions. I'm like, listen to me talk about the burdens that I carry, that I've been carrying for years, you know, any sort of man, the things that I was never said that I could talk about and everything like that. Or again, you know, like what would that look like? What would that look like where, you know, just for that divine feminine to literally, again, I kind of feel like there's like this collective healing that is coming up, that is arising in the world right now. And I would just, again, kind of like on behalf of the divine masculine, I would just say like, divine feminine, like please, within your heart, it would help us a lot if you can hold space for just to listen to us, be able to talk about the things that are, you know, within our heart that we don't normally get a chance to talk about, the things that scare us, the shadows, the darkness, the things that we're healing, the things that we aren't proud about, the things that other people will, you know, judge and ridicule and everything like that. And again, not to say any of those emotions aren't valid, but if we want to really be able to heal, we really have to be able to sit. And I think it's the power of the divine feminine that can kind of like sit, where it's just like, speak to me, like speak to me, tell me what you are feeling as a result of this, so that we can heal it together. You know, for me, I honestly, like, as simple as that sounds, I think that literally is a huge thing within the collective healing that is taking place, opposed to, again, kind of like someone does something wrong, like, don't even like I don't even want to hear it, no excuses, boom, and you just put them out there and everything like that. But again, in relatively speaking, for the divine feminine to be able to bravely, in the face of their own shadows, be able to like sit with a masculine energy that again is kind of like holding something wounded, and be able to just say like, I give you space to communicate. And in that communication, in that space of being seen and heard and still loved, that is when the divine masculine will actually be able to heal parts of itself that it has not properly healed for hundreds and hundreds of years, that it still carries within us. At least that's the wisdom that it kind of comes out of my heart. And let me know if that resonates with you, anybody in the chat or anybody else here as well. Because again, I think that's like, yeah, I just think that's so incredibly powerful. And I understand that takes a degree of like bravery and courage for the divine feminine to be able to do that. So passing it over to, was it David that we're going to pass it to next? Yeah, like give it, yeah, okay, David, we'll pass it over to you, dude, and then Ashley will pass it over to you afterwards. David, go.
Yeah, that was so powerful. That was so real. Because that, wow, yeah, that's huge. I wanted to piggyback on that actually, because just, I guess I don't like want to talk about myself again, but like the letting my cat out. For me, in my relationship specifically, like with my partner being kind of this predominantly masculine energy in our relationship, like it's been really interesting watching how the status quo, like the paradigm at large, is kind of built like on her side. You know what I mean? It's very, the masculine sort of paradigm that we exist in is very much, it's constantly, we joke, but like it's constantly giving her the feedback that like that perspective is the right perspective, just because of that kind of void of femininity in the collective consciousness as a whole. And it's been really interesting to go from a place where I didn't feel like I could articulate, that I had to kind of like suffer in silence, to feeling like I could articulate how I was feeling about something and not have that like just devalued, or, you know, or treated like it was like kind of crazy. And, but then also back to Brendon's point, when it came time, when I started just kind of healing myself and creating that space for her, and for myself, a really cool thing happened, or a way that I kind of came to that was beginning to realize, like, a thing that pulled the judgment off of giving her the space to kind of come and open up to me was the understanding of the archetypal nature of masculine energy. and how it pulled some of the charge and the judgment off of it, and it just became like natural. So like we have a running joke that like we only have one fight, and it's always like her hyper masculine perspective has infiltrated her point of view, and then my feminine perspective has infiltrated my point of view. And usually the second I let that go and realize, oh wait, we're not talking about like this thing down here in this low, but we're talking up here, it really pulls a lot of the judgment away and really has helped me just open up and have that space so she can feel comfortable to go, oh yeah, like, because it usually comes down like, oh, obviously you think that way, or obviously that's the way that I'm interpreting this. And I think that's been really, really helpful for me to kind of hold that space non-judgmentally and just become curious as to like how her perspectives are just different and not wrong. I think pulling the wrongness off of those perspectives is huge. And then also just for us, um, I think it's really cool because it feels like the divine feminine energy is a very like, it's an awakening energy. It's an energy of awakening. Our paradigm has been so, it's a masculine paradigm that we exist in now. The feminine energy is one of awakening. And I think as we awaken, it gives us a unique perspective as to what society is going through at the moment. Like it gives us a perspective of, because we have so many glorious maps from all of our beliefs and traditions or whatever, glorious maps of the process of awakening. And it really gives us the space, at least it's helped me become way less judgmental of when like things like cancel culture are the norm, or things like it pulls a lot of that judgment off, because I go, oh no, I remember that. Yes, this is a part of the awakening process. When you get smacked with the divine feminine, an overcorrect can happen. It happened for me. It happens for all of us. It's okay. A lot of the time you're going to become overzealous and overcorrect, and it's going to take a while before we can balance that and ride that bull. And it's really helped me internally really just kind of not be so reactive and judgmental of what's happening out there, and really turn inward and deal with my own stuff. So I just think that as the conscious creators that everybody here is, I think we have a unique gift to be able to kind of see that and just recognize that it's really our deal. And that's it.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Well said. All right, we'll pass it over to Ashley. Ashley, when you're ready, go right in. Anything else, even in response to what David said, I said, or anything else, go for it when you're ready, Ashley. And let me try that again. There you go. Should be good.
Oh yeah. Oh wait, so we kind of decided in the
Kris
chat that I was gonna go like
okay. All right, okay, we'll pass over to Kris then. All right, thank you, Kris. Go ahead, Kris, when you're ready.
Okay. Yeah, so I just had some stuff that really like came to the surface, like when Lilly was talking, that were like extremely like relevant and having to do with like just kind of this like the repressed like shadow that like has just like been within the collective for so long, like has been suppressed and repressed, and like like really we can look at like the time now as being it's this idea that like as the energies of life and soul like are more denied, repressed, or oppressed, either in the psyche or in relationship, or in a relationship or in the culture at large, like then basically like when that happens, like it's a pressurization, that it's the when that is happening, the more negative and darker aspects of like the feminine energy like become activated within the psyche, or they come up to the surface. So like when we look at this whole idea that has been referred to as this like collective kind of like purging process, in so many ways like it really is this process and this journey into the self, into like all of the areas of self that maybe we don't want to go, or into those dark aspects of self, and being able to journey within them to like be able to pull like the seeds of wisdom that is contained within the divine feminine itself. So when we look at this whole idea about like it's like going in and examining these dark aspects of ourselves, we can call ourselves back to this ancient primordial wisdom that is contained within as you were talking about, Brendon, with like the Aboriginal cultures. I've always had such a strong connection with like Australian Aboriginal rock art and cave art and stuff, and why I felt like so connected to what Lilly was saying and everything was it reminded me of this card within my the Mayan oracle deck that I use called Akbal. And, you know, like, this is literally like the card, it's like, you know, like journeying like into the abyss, or, you know, into the cave, or, you know, like it's the into the womb, you know. And when you think about within caves, within like the past, it's literally like, you know, in so many ways, like entering into the darkness or into this womb of creation. And you see all the creation that is within, you know, like, um, within cave art and stuff like that. And you have to think about, you know, the time back then when they would go in with like, you know, like barely any light, and basically be like, you know, it was this journey into the darkness to, you know, basically like uncover and discover, you know, like these aspects of self, like, you know, within that, within the darkness, and in that like womb space of like creative energy. And so I just wanted to share some of the insights, like, you know, kind of like, from this card. And, you know, like, that's basically what I wanted to say, is that, you know, like, the energies now are like all calling us like back within. And you can think about this, like, you know, in so many ways, how it's like so much of our attention is always focused externally. And this is like what Lilly was saying, and it's what, you know, all of us have said, like, in one way or another during this call. Like, you know, it's just kind of this overly, like, you know, masculine energy, which is just focused on like doing, instead of being able to receive, you know, like the gifts of being, of being alive. Like, you know, instead of trying to do and do and do and do and do so much. And when you look at the results of our society, it's literally just a resultant of that. It's like this over masculine energy of just like, you know, like constantly doing, instead of being able to tune within and actually receive and to listen, and, you know, like to receive the gifts, like, you know, that come from, you know, the primordial waters, or, you know, like of ourself. And, you know, they come from like the darkness, and being able to confront and face those aspects of self. So I just wanted to share a couple of things from this, you know, like that the shadow wisdom, you know, like of this card is like, you know, it's a viewpoint that is too internal and subjective, and it becomes like, it comes with like, you know, sadness, depression, and self-judgment, and fear of change. And, you know, the transformation is to be willing to examine how you judge and evaluate yourself, to embrace and follow your inner shadow processes, to learn their gifts. And, you know, the harmonic wisdom, as you brought up before, Brendon, like the word that I remember you saying, you know, it was just this integration. You know, like the meditation for this card, I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but, you know, it's that the meditation for this card is that I am, a quote by T.S. Eliot, and it's that I am the darkness that is the light, and the stillness that is the dancing. And the affirmation is, I pilgrimage deep within the sanctuary of self to garner the gifts awaiting me there. So, you know, like the whole idea of this card is, you know, to enter the enveloping darkness of the womb of self, to sit in stillness there, as you were saying, Brendon. The internal journey of introspection and integration of the mystery has begun. For yourself to look fully at your present situation from a subjective point of view. So basically, receiving this card that you are all receiving right now, because I'm sharing it with you, and it's because like it was just like I thought of this card, and I was like, this like touches upon so many aspects of like what I feel like we're all going through collectively. Like, you know, like in past broadcasts, like, you know, we've talked about this whole idea of like, you know, it's like the dark night of the soul and stuff like that, and it's really just kind of like this deep internal process of being called like to go within, when a lot of these things that are open outside of us are actually like have been closed, you know, like literally on a physical level. Like so many of these different like um doing actions that are like associated with like, you know, just kind of being within the world, being within the world without, you know, like have been closed off to us. So, you know, it's really been calling us back into journeying within the self. And if we haven't been journeying within ourself, then it's basically like we've been facing the result of all of those things that have been a result of just constantly doing. So, you know, it's like then we maybe keep playing out the old program or the old story, and we actually like aren't listening to, and we aren't receiving the call to go within. So it's like, you know, like it's calling us to, you know, like examine these aspects of self, but maybe we are just continuing to do stuff all the time. So, you know, like I think that during these times today, you know, like it really is this call of like, you know, the divine feminine to, you know, like turn within and to, you know, like, yeah, like to go within to the place of potential where all dreams, ideas, and possibilities exist. I'm not going to be too much longer, but, you know, it's to enter into the potency of the dream time matrix. And, you know, like that's what the Aboriginal people called it. It was like, you know, like Aboriginal dream time and stuff like that. So it's like, you know, where all things are possible, to utilize this, learn to utilize this dream time where there is no distinction between then and now, real or imagined, dream and or dreamer. All that you are, all that you believe, hope, and dream creates your personal dream field. In that field, there are no victims or blame. You are now attracting those elements to your field that will create completion and wholeness for you. So it's asking you to become like lucid in life, like, you know, to become the conscious dreamer, you know, like within the dream, as you always talk about, Brendon. And just so like, you know, like when you draw this card, like it's being asked to cross the boundaries of your own growth edges. In the stillness within you, the potent gifts form in the darkness. So it's being willing to embrace and follow the process into the void of seeming pain and discomfort, to the place of the mystery, sense the possible answers and receive the insights being offered as the unconscious reveals itself. So it's paying special attention to your dreams, and that, you know, the potent treasures await you in the dream time, where the mystery of enclosing darkness, you know, reveals its face. And, you know, it's, so the shadow of this card, as I was explaining before, so like, you know, where when we can kind of have this imbalance in this polarity is when we are focused too inward and subjective. So we can become lost within that kind of space of journeying inward, where we're not giving voice to the vision and shadow that we learn from our unconscious. So like, as Lilly was explaining before, like, you know, it's so important to be expressing all of this too. So it's like, you know, this integration of both. It's like going within and finding all of this wisdom, and then not being afraid to speak it, and, you know, to will these aspects into the world, like, you know, into creation, you know, like, and creation is this act in of itself that is this twofold process. Like, you know, it's that the two can't be separated from each other, like, you know, the masculine and the feminine. So it's like, you know, going within, then give without, you know, like, it's this whole process that requires both of those things. So, you know, like, it's like that, I'm going to be done in 1 second, but it's like, you know, like, instead of resisting your subjective process, it's beginning to transform it by fully embracing it. So, you know, we journey into this abyss to find the positive intent of your subjectivity or inward search. So, you know, like, basically it's like we may have issues of self-judgment to amplify our feelings of separation. And if that's so, we need to enter into the sanctuary of silence to explore how your present belief systems may be creating illusion. In this evolutionary playing field, remember that belief systems that are ready to be transformed draw to themselves the way through their shadows. So be willing to step into the unknown, go deep within, see what jewels may be hidden in the heart of your own darkness. The truth you find in that darkness often holds the greatest potential for growth. So, you know, when we journey within, we can really uncover, as I was saying before, you know, these hidden gems of wisdom, you know, that we can bring forth and bring outwardly to the world. But none of that happens through looking without and basically just constantly taking on what other people are telling us we should be doing. That's the old paradigm, when we've been being manipulated by what other people have been telling us what we should be doing. We need to turn within and go within to recognize our own inherent power that we have within us, like, you know, to command that I am presence, that, you know, like, it's like, I am, you know, capable of giving this which I have received. So, like, you know, it's like being able to integrate both, and that is coming into like this greater harmony within ourselves. And it only happens through examining these darker aspects of self that we oftentimes don't want to look at. And I think that this whole time collectively can be related to this collective purging process, where it's like, you know, releasing the old, and releasing the old comes with being able to see those things for what they are. And it comes from being able to find that stillness within yourself, instead of just being so focused on the external and so focused on acting. Instead, we need to be focused on receiving the gifts that are coming to us all the time, you know, in the form of different downloads and different information. But it only happens when we can quiet the mind and we can go within into that darkness, you know, in order to reveal the light. So that's what I had to share. I know that's like a lot of stuff, but it's just because so much stuff came up and I really wanted to share it. So yeah.
Good job. Thank you, Kris. Awesome. All right. Okay. We'll pass it over to Ashley in 1 second. I'm just gonna riff on a couple things here. I'll wait till later. I'll pass it over to Ashley now. So Ashley, when you're ready, go right ahead, and I'll pass it over to you if you're ready. So yeah, go for it.
I just want to say thank you, Kris, like just a million times yes to everything you just said. I have some things I wanted to touch on about, yes, healing the divine feminine, and just to add some little things off of what Kris said. Let's see here. Well, it was really cool when you're talking about, you know, being in caves, being in womb, like being in that like womb in the abyss, in the darkness. Like classically, a lot of shamans and druids would find their most powerful meditations within doing it in caves, as well as going on psychedelic trips in caves. And part of, if you look across so many cultures, it's interesting how much of the psychedelic trips, you know, this vast range of herbs you can take, was part of that, which partly took them to the spirit realm, took them to that dream time to see all that which is. And classically in ancient times, like the first shamans were women. So I wanted to, yes, go over a few elements on how to connect the divine feminine as well as heal her. One of my favorite things that I always say, like a broken record, is doing yoga, specifically like therapeutic yoga and yin yoga. One, because it is essentially, it's more slowed down, and when we slow down, we're more able to feel our emotions. And don't get me wrong, all forms of yoga are amazing and beautiful, empowering, but they serve different purposes at different times. And with, classic hatha or vinyasa, it's very quick, it's very fast, it's very rigid in terms of the structure and anatomy and alignment, whereas yin and therapeutic yoga, it's more of just kind of resting and releasing and being with what already is. And I find that there comes a lot more of emotional releases in those two types of yoga specifically, just because, again, you're giving yourself the space to fully sit and sink and be with yourself in the varying different postures and allow the mind to slow down. Another element is doing sacral work. So whether that's different postures that focus on the sacral chakra, whether that's doing like color therapy or different mantras, anything that's going to connect you with the sacral chakra, because that's essentially kind of like the divine feminine home. That's where the womb is, that is where our creation, our creativity, as well as water, well, really, I like all elements connect to the divine feminine, but water is a super, super huge one. So connecting with water, like that, like propelled me into a different universe. This is kind of like out there, but I like when you plant your womb, when you essentially like do like blood rituals or moon blood rituals, and you connect to the earth and you give it to the earth, you give it back to the water, like just connecting for me with water in that way. And I have this like special creek that I go to where you can kind of like sit in the middle, like, because the rocks rise up. So I've like meditated in the river, and that's like really powerful. It's funny because it's like the divine feminine is part stillness in the aspect of introspection, but really she is fluid and she's always moving. So that's why water is a big one. And so dance and movement and this concept of mindful movement and mindful meditation in that way is super, super huge. What else do we got here? Kris was also talking about, I think it's Kris, basically like part of that abyss, the void, the darkness is entering into our subconscious or our unconscious. So doing work, like I do things like yoga nidra, hypnosis, all these things that are going to go in and heal that subconscious, which is like, when you get in there, things shift real big, because that is the root. Like you can sometimes say daily mantras all day long, which are great and powerful, but sometimes they're just so wounded and rooted and deep within your energetic bodies that you have to go right to the source to heal that. So that's another one. Connecting with nature in any way, because I believe a huge aspect of the Supreme Mother is Mother Earth, thinking about how much she gives to us. She just constantly gives, and we haven't been the best to always treat her the same back. And that's why I like to do rituals involving giving back my love to Mother Earth and connecting with her in that same way. Let's see. Another one is the aspect of sacred sexuality and tantra, because again, that the divine feminine is part of that creative energy that creates, which is part of sexual energy. Sexual energy is really just another form of creative energy. And when you can learn to heal your sexuality, it's very, very common within men or women to have woundings around, sexuality, sexual abuse. So involving that healing process is very, very major, and transformative. And one last one is, what I like to do is essentially just connecting to yourself, and channeling. So when you think about something you want to do, when you think about answers, rituals, like anything you want to do that you want to first look at external information for, just like stop, take a breath, create it as an intention for a meditation, and see if anything comes to you directly. So instead of always looking at a book or something for external sources, see what directly comes to you through feeling, through intuition, because those are major components for her, for divine feminine, as well. And lastly, I just want to touch on women. I think like we really need to be, or at least like this is my standpoint, like big advocates, big supporters, being able, once of course we've healed it within ourselves, being able to hold, like Brendon was saying, that container for men to feel and let them know that this is safe, like this is okay. Like I just see a lot of examples around TikTok and social media always being like, the joke is like, men are trash. Like that's usually like the general phrase that's like thrown out there. And while it's like funny, and of course like men don't always treat women great, like I think we need to be able to shift that and understand why they're acting like that. Because through understanding, we can always find compassion. So why do maybe men degrade women or don't treat them, great, abuse, all these things? And it's because like that's the culture they were usually brought up in. And this is just on the collective stance. There's specific situations where it might not be the same, but they were born into the patriarchy, and they were from birth taught these things of what is to be valued of a woman and how to treat her. And they're not always taught the right things. And a lot of women actually have a lot of internalized misogyny as well, because we're taught not to value our own femininity. So once we look into ourselves and heal these aspects of ourselves, I really make a call out to women to be able to be there and support men on their divine feminine healing journey, which is also healing their fractured divine masculine, and realizing how powerful they can be in feeling their feelings and sharing that space. And let me just tell you, from a healed divine feminine, like, and healing that in myself, like when I see like a man embracing his femininity, like that's sexy as hell. I just got to put that out there. Like that is so beautiful, so attractive, like wholeness, seeking out wholeness. Like let's stop the shame around that. Like in my opinion, a healed embodied woman will find that attractive. She won't think, oh, that's gross, or oh, men shouldn't be like that, because that is part of the divine masculine, in being healed in that aspect and leading with truth and integrity and nurturing. Like men, the divine feminine classically is that nurturing energy. So yeah, want to support you guys, love the work that you're putting into yourself. It's so honored, it's so needed, and it's so appreciated.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ashley. And actually, what I wanted to mention here, I might actually be curious to even just pass over to you quickly and then pass over to someone else. There's just two things. I'll just say one thing first. One thing that's just kind of like a general idea that's just interesting to think about. It's kind of been mentioned earlier, but just again, there's people who are new. I love the word matrix, and a lot of people think of the word matrix, but they don't always associate matrix with literally being associated with matriarch, which again is literally the divine feminine. And the word matrix literally means womb. So when you think of it, like, what is the purpose of the womb? The purpose of the womb is to birth something into creation. So if we are in a quote unquote matrix right now, that is literally, again, something that is here to birth our soul, to birth our consciousness, so to speak. One of the things that I think was I wanted to mention real quick, even though there's a few things that I wanted to be able to say, but again, like, even within the divine feminine, I love the example of Kali as the divine feminine, you know, because so we're talking a lot about the different archetypes of the divine feminine, and we are talking about how it's like this very gentling and nurturing, but we are also talking about, again, kind of this warrior energy. And so I love the idea that, like, the fierceness and the fire of the divine feminine has always been a part of the story, where it's like, yo, like, she will burn you to the ground, she will burn right through your bullshit, you know, like, she will cut through, she will see through your manipulation, she will see through your lies, she will, you know, like, pulverize you into the grains of your very molecular being, so that you can rebuild yourself, so that you can transform. You know, so it's kind of like the flame itself is a very kind of like feminine energy, as much as the water, as much as all the elements, right? So I think that's a very interesting thing. And there's also this very interesting idea where, you know, Kali, we think about this deity, and again, it's a deity that a lot of us have seen in depictions, and it's depicted almost like a creature out of a horror movie. It's got like skulls around its neck, it's like holding bloody knives, it's got like this demon face and everything like that, and it's supposed to be scary, it's supposed to be terrifying, you know, because it kind of like represents like the, you know, the universe's like karmic righteousness, where it's basically saying like, it's like, you know, like you're like, where there is imbalance within yourself, the universe will help create balance by calling you out on your imbalance, by bringing light to it, out of love, even though it may be fierce at times, right? A lot of like kind of like that like airy sag energy as well. But what I was going to say, what's interesting is that the Kali archetype within the story is that, as if you actually try to get to know Kali, the relationship will change. If you actually try to understand her, she becomes gentle. She meets you in this place. Like, people think it's like, oh, Kali, like, that's a great like representation of a woman, this like crazy woman running around with bloody knives. Like, oh, like, that doesn't sound like a very pleasing symbolic representation of a woman. It's like, what are you trying to say? Like, you calling us, you know, like, what are you trying to say, right? It sounds like it's an insult if it's not held in the right context. But I love that idea that beyond the kind of like scariness of this archetype of the divine feminine, there is the softness behind it. There is always the element of I think when I think of the divine feminine, I think of the archetype of fierce love and fierce rage and fierce anger. And I think we're seeing this a lot. I think we're seeing this a lot where, again, with a lot of the things that are happening right now, where there's like different like sexual allegations related to even people within the conscious community as well. You know, like if you haven't heard, there's been quite a fair amount of that going around. Nako being a great example. Again, you know, that a lot of people are just like, wait a second, like, here's this person, I thought he was supposed to be great. But it turns out that he has shadows and he has crappy behavior too. And so you saw this righteous wave of divine feminine just being like, how dare you, how dare you, how dare you. But then that was actually the post that it was someone who worked with Nako, and that was the person who actually said that, where they were basically like, yo, like, divine feminine, like, if we want men to be able to break this cycle, we have to be able to hold space for them where they can communicate, where they can talk, opposed to just kind of like running at them with the, you know, with the bloody knives and everything like that. There's a purpose to that. But even for the divine feminine, can you carry both? Can you carry both at the same time, the gentleness and the kind of fierce rage, the fierce anger? Because again, you know, behind, this is something I've talked about before, and I'll pass it over to Ashley. Behind, when you get curious about anger, when you get curious about rage, there is love within it. You know, the only reason you're angry or because your rage is there is because you care about something so deeply. So the rage is justified, right? But at the same time, you know, like just being aware of kind of like the different ways in which the feminine can sort of like continue to hold space for the healing of the divine masculine as well. But anyways, Ashley, I'll pass it over to you, and then for anybody else who wants to go next, just put your hands up real quick. Again, Kristen, I'll pass it over to you next. Just kind of and oh, I also should mention we're getting close to the end of the broadcast, so let's say we'll wrap it up within about a half hour, even though I know this one could go on for a little bit longer. Ashley, any thoughts on the Kali archetype or anything else I said? Please feel free to go ahead and jump right.
I just, the first thing that you said that I didn't even realize, it's funny that when you talk about the Matrix, like what is the most famous movie? Obviously the name, the title is The Matrix, but the way they portray that is in very like kind of computer generated, like logical, kind of like this masculine form of the Matrix. And you see kind of people talking about oh, we live in the Matrix and like computer generated. But yes, classically the belief is that it's, it's the spider, the web of life, the creation of life and that form. And in terms of Kali and just that type of archetype, yeah, it definitely is a balance between the gentle and the fire, because that's one of the greatest powers, I believe, of the divine feminine is the cyclical nature of birth, death, and rebirth, alchemical transformation, in that regard. So she needs to be able to hold that fire to have that process. But on the other end, when you see more of an imbalance when the divine feminine is too passive and kind of becomes that victim mentality, and that's when you can tell when it's imbalanced. And I think women have to kind of have that fire, especially within this specific climate of, I don't want to say keeping, it's not keeping men in line, but I guess that's not the way to phrase it. Owning your own wholeness and owning your own self-love, and not letting, like in terms of like boundaries, excuse me, like being able to uphold your boundaries, being able to speak your truth and like use your voice. Like women have to have that aspect of fire. But just like the masculine, when it's too fiery, it can kind of go into persecution and control and anger without understanding. And so it is finding that divine balance, because that's where, how you see the outplay of the fractured masculine now is like, if you don't give someone the ability to have the space to feel their feelings, it comes out in anger, it comes out in rage and control. Yeah, I think that's
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. Kristen, pass it over to you, and then whoever else wants to go next, just go ahead and let me know when you're ready. Go ahead, Kristen.
Awesome. So absolutely beautiful thoughts, Ashley. I love hearing your words of wisdom. They're always so lovely. Thank you for sharing. I sometimes during these broadcasts, I like to do a small tarot pull just to get a little clarity on the conversation. And in asking the divine feminine, what do we need to hear? I actually pulled the Ace of Cups, which I thought was pretty perfect for the life-giving waters that flow from above. As our words and thoughts create worlds, would we not want to bring creation with kindness, love, and open minds? That's all I had to share. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Kristen, and thank you, Kristen's tarot deck, for adding some insights to the discussion tonight. So, even then, even like when you think about it, like working with tarot, working with divination, is in itself working with like the divine feminine energy again, kind of like that intuitive connection. So again, passing it over to Rachel, and then we'll keep going from there. Go ahead, Rachel.
Yeah, I actually I had something to say to what Ashley said, and hopefully I remember it. But in response to the Ace of Cups, oh my goodness, I just like had a feeling that that was the card that you had. So okay, the trusting the intuition, but also Brendon, what you just said too about the tarot being the divine feminine, like using those like tools of divination. Um, Actually, something that's been coming up for me a lot recently in the past couple months has been this knowing that I don't, or like this feeling and knowing that I don't actually need those tools, and relying on those tools is actually holding me back from my true intuition. And like when I use the tarot, I keep getting all of this stuff that's like, I already knew that. It's like, why did I bother asking? Like, it's almost frustrating because I'm like, wait, like, I didn't even need to like pull those cards because that was just like a waste of time because I already knew that. And like, I'm just like not trusting my gut, not trusting my intuition. So I'm trying to rely on this outside source of myself. And this is again going back to like outside of ourselves and not within ourselves. And like looking for this affirmation, these affirmations and this guidance from something outside of ourselves. But we are all the Christ consciousness, we are all the God and goddess like within ourselves. And so to look for anything outside of ourselves is to step away from that divinity. And so in using any of those kinds of like tools, like pendulums, tarot, crystals, like all of that, like that's amazing and it's great and I love all of that stuff. But when it really comes down to it, if we really want to connect with our divinity, that actually is a barrier to connecting with that. And like I see that as more of the divine masculine actually, because it is like this very physical, um which is interesting because again it's like the dualities, because the masculine is more of like the like ethereal spirit and like the feminine is more physical. But at the same time, like I see it as like the logical, like I need a logical explanation for like what to do. Like so I'm going to look at these cards to tell me what I need to know and what I need to do and what I need to feel right now. Like looking for something outside of the self and like needing this like logical explanation instead of just going, oh, I just had a feeling, oh, I just had a thought, I should just like trust that and just like I feel it, I know it, you know. um so um that was in response to the tarot cards, and I love that. That's one of my favorite cards. I've been pulling that card so much over the course of the last few months, and it really spoke to me. I got really excited when you pulled that card. So thank you for sharing that, Kristen. That was so beautiful to see that in this space tonight. And then let me see if I remembered what I wanted to say in response to what Ashley said. I might not remember. That's okay.
Can I ask you a question, Rachel? Sure.
Yes.
Okay. So this is kind of going back to a question that I asked earlier, but just even right now, I'll preface it again. As divine feminine, on like behalf of the divine feminine representing it, what do you need from us on behalf of the divine masculine right now? What do you need from us, moving forward?
I don't know if you saw my comments in the YouTube chat in response, but when you were talking about listening, I was actually feeling the same way, which is kind of fun. It's like, again, like this is what Lilly actually commented in the Zoom chat. So I don't think it was everyone could see it, but like the grand irony is that we want men to speak more about how they're feeling. And like exactly what you were saying about like, we need to listen to how men are feeling. But the thing is, we already feel it. We already know, like we have this knowing of like what you're thinking and what you're like, I had all this like this whole thing with my ex where like I felt it. I knew that he wasn't being honest and forthright and communicating with me, and I had this knowing and feeling about it, and I still was like trying to get to the bottom of it without him expressing it, and like saying like, okay, like I feel it, I know it, and then not trusting my intuition because he wasn't coming right out and saying it. But still, like, I don't know, like it really frustrates me that we're all still trying to like pit one against the other. And so like really we all need the same thing. We all want the same thing. We all want to be heard and listened to and communicated with. And so like maybe men seem to have more of this like the masculinity, not even men, but just like the masculine side of things is that you don't want to talk about how you're feeling, you just want to talk about what you know, and like this like share your knowledge. And like I forget who brought this up earlier, but the idea that the masculinity is like pulling from like what's come before and like looking at books and like facts and science and things that other people have already figured out and trying to dissect that or like create your own perspective on something that's like already been written down like in history or like taken from history. And then the feminine is very much like the feeling, the gut feelings is like the feminine energy is like that, the intuition and not like the knowing. And so for the as the divine feminine, we want to be heard for what we know. We want to we want to feel like we know what we're talking about. There have been so many situations where I've interacted with um mostly wounded divine masculine, but they steamroll me. And like, I mean, even like, I feel like I have always had this balance of the feminine and masculine, where I have always been a big talker. I do talk a lot, I have a lot to say, and I like to share my knowledge, but also very in touch with my feelings as the divine feminine, as a female being who very much resonates with the female side of things, but also like never understood when they would say cross your legs, no you can't go climb that tree, like what do you think, like I think Lilly brought this up too, like the be a lady, sit like a lady, like I don't know, like you can't do that because you're a lady. And the same thing for men too, that they get told they can't do certain things because like, oh like no you can't play dress up or play house, that's not manly. um and like, so it's all these constructs, but really when it comes down to it, we all need and want the same things. You men, the divine masculine wants to be feel like they can express, they want to feel like they can express their feelings. And the divine feminine, we want to feel like we can express our knowledge without being told that we don't know what we're talking about, and that like what we think we know isn't really the facts, and what we know isn't what we really know. And that you know like the, or not you, but like the divine masculine knows better and has more insight into knowledge. And so it's really two sides of the same coin, it's all the same thing, and it's just finding how, like it's really all comes down to communication, it's really what it is all about. And I think it's very much both, for both energies. And both energies to come into union need to see it as one thing, and not like we need this from you and you need this from us. And like again, it's the duality, and as long as we keep it in a duality, there won't be a healing, it'll always be one pitted against the other. So that's my insight on that. And now I completely forget what I had to say to what Ashley said, so we'll skip that. But I loved everything today. And just I guess I'll do my closing remarks and say thank you, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak here tonight. And I loved everything that everyone had to say, especially what Ashley was saying towards the end there. It was, I can't actually express how that resonated with me. And I'm sad that a bunch of people popped out already though, because I really was resonating with a lot of what Lilly had to say as well. And you guys are all just so beautiful, and I love you all so much. And thank you,
Awesome.
so much gratitude.
Good job. Thank you, Rachel, as well, for bringing your beautiful energy to this discussion. So, again, we're gonna get close. So let's kind of say like like one more pass around the circle. So for anybody else, kind of like additional thoughts, kind of related back to the question of like what is needed right now. What I'm actually gonna do, I'm actually just gonna take a moment here to just kind of like share a little bit about my path moving forward, and how I choose to continue to develop my own personal relationship with the divine feminine energy, both outside of me and inside of me. And for the men who are here as well, I encourage you to kind of reflect and even echo something within your own words. So with what it is, again, going back to my curiosity's question, where it's like, it's like, what do you need right now? Like, tell us what you need right now. And I just I'm reminded of that scene from The Notebook where Ryan Gosling's there with Rachel McAdams, and that's not the best example because that relationship's kind of toxic and everything like that. But he's like, what do you want? What do you want? And she's like, I don't know. But like inside she knows, but it's like hard to be able to explain and express and everything like that. But what I feel called to do is right now within this point in the story, I just feel called to be able to help kind of hold up the female, to hold up, to kind of again, almost going back to this concept of almost like worship, in a traditional sense, in a very day-to-day sense, where it's like not just worship, but it's also like in service and celebration is the way that I see that. And I share that relationship, again, like within people in the community, members of the team, friends, family, my mother, and things like that. And then even with like my own partner, I have like another layer of that intimate relationship with that. And I know that in a lot of ways, like for the females and everything like that, through, again, a lot of what I'm thinking about here almost kind of like goes back to our previous podcast about spiritual lessons of relationships and love. And I'm thinking about how, from my own experience, I know the power of females in like being able to be like held during times of uncertainty, to be like have like someone kind of like next to them in times when there may be kind of like doubt and fear and just kind of like a lot of like grief and everything like that. So that's where something where, again, you know, like just being able to practice, just being able to kind of like commit myself to just being able to kind of like hold space for the collective healing that is happening within both of us right now. And to know that like one of the ways that can happen with the female is literally, again, not even so much in words, but it's more so in presence. You know, it's the presence of that divine masculine that again can just kind of at times like help like kind of like anchor in the feminine. You know, like I'm just kind of like imagining, and again, I'm not trying to like, obviously, again, like I'm not trying to get like into too specific stereotypes and stuff like that, but you know, I'm just like almost like imagining and this could be entirely just like a fairy tale in my head, but I'm imagining like a woman giving birth and that being like a very, very, very powerful transformational time. What would it mean for them in that moment of like of birthing pains, of transformation, for them to like be there with like their partner, their husband? But again, like this could be anyone, it doesn't necessarily, gender isn't necessarily specific, but to be there in that position where, you know, imagine they like were just like able to kind of like hold the hand of their partner in that moment. How would that make them feel? How would that presence be able to make them feel? And so like that's the type of presence where it's kind of like, hey, like I know what we are going through is a little bit scary, and I know what we are going through is going to be a little bit hard. It's going to be a little bit challenging. And even though I don't know 100% what will happen, what I do know is that I will choose to stand next to you. And that is my promise. You know, that is my promise, to be able to not try and like dictate and say what may or may not need to happen, but to literally just stand in the presence of this unfolding story that we are both in. And so for myself, I've had a just kind of reflecting here, knowing that we're just going around the circle, and I just want to be able to take a moment here. My personal relationship with the divine feminine has always been a big part of my story. And even for those of you, if you guys are looking to go in and see a little bit of this, you can actually see it within the Journey to Lucidity movies, which are the movies that I've made about the Transformational Festival. And there's one scene within the second one, and it's literally this character within the movie who represents like the mother goddess, like literally it's this one of the leaders at the festival, just beautiful woman, and she just oozes like this essence of like divine mother energy, divine feminine energy. And there's this scene in the movie where it's kind of cute, and basically it's a scene where I like make a promise with her, and I basically pledge my servitude, my loyalty, my devotion, my thing where it's like, yo, like, yeah, my journey is important, my personal journey is important, but like my deeper journey is to be able to help make sure that you get to where you need to get on your journey. How can I assist you with that? You know, I almost kind of like think back to some sort of like classical archetype of kind of like a knight serving the queen or something like that. That type of archetype is something that I just kind of like has always been a part of me. And now it's kind of transformed into this idea of like, you know, like for the divine feminine, it's like, I give you my sword. Like I shall stand for you. I shall stand to be able to protect you, to be a messenger of you, to be in service of you, and to worship you and to love you. And again, in the times where the relationship is again kind of on that intimate level where it's like really just to celebrate you in all the creative and beautiful ways that you want to be able to share in this celebration. And so that's the thing where even part of the relationship with the divine feminine, honoring it within myself is great in being able to share it in a way where it is about like the exciting parts. It is about the joy. It is about the bliss. It is about the sensuality. It is about the expression, the freedom. You know, like I think, just as an example, kind of connecting into this divine feminine energy, I almost think of like this scene of kind of like running with, you know, like say you've got this could be me or this could be someone else. There's like a male who's kind of like, again, kind of like got this like tough macho attitude to him or something like that, and then the woman kind of like softens him and invites him to kind of take off his armor. Again, almost going back to like this archetype of like the prince, you know, the knight and the queen sort of thing. Take off your armor, you know, like reveal, open your heart. And I imagine like this scene of like, again, it sounds like something out of a movie of like a woman kind of like leading the man back into the realm of spirits, you know, back into like running through the fields and connecting with nature and being in the grass. And now that I think about it, like that's essentially actually like what we see in like Pocahontas, you know, like literally like this John Smith character, and then Pocahontas is like let me show you that softness within inside of you, and let me give you the space to be able to celebrate it and to express it and to be able to connect more with it. And so, you know, for myself, where it's like kind of at a part in my journey where I've already honored that. I do honor that Pocahontas-ness within me. Like I'll sing Colors of the Wind, I'll sing songs. We might even end this broadcast with a song. I actually forgot to mention that. So if anybody wants to like sing with a little, not that song, but if anybody, well that maybe, but if anybody wants to sing any sort of song or just kind of like even a song, it could be made up on the spot, please feel free. Because I feel that is a very good representation of this feminine energy. But again, you know, I get excited about the feminine energy in kind of like this again, kind of like this next level in the narrative where we start getting into this idea of like divine marriage, divine union. And maybe that's a broadcast for a whole, like that's another topic for a whole nother broadcast, you know. I'm debating, I'm like, do we need to have another podcast where we literally just talk about spiritual wisdom of the divine masculine? Like, is that another 3-hour discussion? And then do we have one on like divine marriage, divine union? What does that kind of like look like as we continue to support each other? Because again, even though we're 3 hours into this discussion, there's still so much more to be able to be talked about. But now for me, I am so grateful to be able to be in a relationship with a partner who, again, is like balancing masculine and feminine energies within themselves. Again, even to the point where it's like beyond labels. It's just like, yo, I'm just a human. That's what I am. And then from my end, I'm like, yo, I'm just a human too. Like, yeah, I got labels and terms and everything like that. But as humans, let us kind of like join in this place of celebration. Let us join in this place of ecstatic creation and expression. And so, yes, the aspects of the feminine very much are, again, kind of, you know, helping hold space for the healing. But when the healing has taken place, then what does it look like, you know? And that's where it gets really exciting. That's where it gets to, yo, let's like kind of going back to what we were talking about with Kris and earlier, where it's like, yo, let's look inwards, let's connect to the inner worlds, let's connect to the creativity, let's connect to the wisdom. And I literally said that at the beginning, where it's like, you know, through the spiritual wisdom of the divine feminine, we will find our way back to the knowledge of the heart, you know, like through the wisdom of the heart. And I feel like that kind of like summarizes it, where again, the male is kind of like plays like this character that kind of leaves the mother, forgets that it is a part of this sacred union, and then the mother kind of calls it back. So we kind of hear this story of like, oh, what are we doing? We're walking each other home. What does that mean? We are walking ourselves back to where we came. What does that mean? We are walking ourselves back to the wisdom of the divine mother, to spirit, to the realm of, you know, like the energy that is beyond that which is seen. So yeah, that's just something that I just kind of like felt called to express. I think it's a beautiful thing to kind of like imagine this vision of kind of like the masculine and feminine energies kind of like rising together, and what that looks like. The healing is a part of the process, but I think just being able to hold that vision beyond of what that looks like, and just being able to invite, you know, both men and women to kind of like change the way they relate to those energies. For some men, you know, it's being able to take off the armor, and then for other women, it's being able to hold up the sword. You know, neither one belongs to the other. It's just a matter of which one we have kind of accumulated more over time because of habits and history, sort of thing. So anyways, let me know if that resonates with you. Anybody else in the chat, drop those 1111s, or anybody else says anything to drop those 1111s. We'll pass it over to who wants to go next. I didn't figure that out yet. Who wants to go next? Kris wants to go next. Okay, and then who wants to go after Kris? either David or David. We'll figure it out. David or David? Let's figure it out. Okay, Kris, I'll pass it over to you. And again, we'll get close to wrapping this up and we'll finish off with a little meditation. And Rachel's going to sing us a song, maybe, possibly. We'll see. I don't know. Have to see. Oh, she's thinking about it. Yeah, okay. I'm like, she's like, oh, I'll do it. So, okay, Kris, when you're ready, go ahead.
Wow. So like so much stuff has been coming up over the course of this broadcast, and just like I think for like what I always need to like always kind of reflect back upon too is that like like so like within these like synergy circle broadcasts, I think something that we can all like bring to our attention is just the fact that so much is brought to our attention, like in the course of these broadcasts, like because it's like all of us sharing these like individual kind of like unique perspectives that like is really just our own kind of filtering of this like collective energy that's like coming like to us all, and like we're all just kind of like translating that and expressing that in these different ways, like if we do feel called to, but really just like even if we're not outwardly expressing it right away, like just some of the things that we can be like these downloads, like if you want to call it that, like just all this information that's like kind of being thrown into the collective field that we're like generating here. And I just wanted to say that like so much like has been so synchronistic and just everything that's come up, because like I'm literally reading this book that I just got gifted to me, like called the Kabbalah, which is like Hermetic philosophy, and it's like understanding the principle of gender of inherent within like everything and stuff like that. And so what you were just even talking about, Brendon, was just that like what it brought up within me was that like it's this idea that like like the name of this broadcast to begin with, like is like the wisdom of the divine feminine, like, and wisdom is also known as within like Kabbalah, or within like kind of like the Gnostic teachings, it's like wisdom Sophia, so like this idea of like Christos Sophia, it refers to the perfection of the law of gender inherent within the solar logos made manifest. So it's basically reflected as the sacred masculine and sacred feminine unified and made whole. So that which is made in the true image of the Godhead. So Christos Sophia is the path of spiritual ascension that leads to the inner discovery of the spark of divinity that exists within the sacred crystal heart and is found within all creation. So like, the inner path of Christos Sophia is taken through gradual spiritual initiations that are designed to unite the polarities that exist between the inner and the outer in the world of forces that alchemically shift our light body. I'm not like just channeling all this information. I'm sharing this from like a ascensionglossary.com, which I like sent like into the chat space, but it's like a great resource for all this. And sometimes it's like a little bit too much. Like when I first kind of came across this one resource, it's like pooling together all this information and stuff like that. But I recently just like came into contact with, I was connecting with my brother Brendon in Massachusetts, where I also met up with and connected with Rachel. But it was like, it was so awesome to connect with and like come into this like union with him in some ways, like just through this connection that we shared, in that like he is always tapped into this deep like well of wisdom and stuff like that, and like has definitely like been on these deep kind of pages of exploration where it's kind of like a gold mine of information. And I just want to like to share that like fact that it's just kind of like sometimes like on our search for information and stuff like that, we can just start kind of like being directed to these like sources of information that just like really provide so much. And so yeah, I don't mean to go on for too long about this, but like it's really just this like the idea of Christos Sophia is this idea of like kind of like coming into this balance, or like this the hieros gamos, like this alchemical union. So like it's like it leads us to seek our own inner wisdom through divine gnosis within our soul, and ultimately helps us to achieve spiritual freedom through attaining unity with like the Godhead. So like when we are at one with God, we exist like within the virtue ethics of the Spirit of Christ, like when we emanate that pure love and wisdom consciousness, like through the marriage that like we attain through the two. And like this is just like one conception of that, of course, like it's like the Christos Sophia, but it's also like like the union of like Shiva and Shakti, and like Shakti being that like universal energy that is inherent within all of creation. So like working with the energy of Shakti can like be expressed, the energy of Shakti is expressed through all of these different Hindu deities. Like one of those being the deity of Durga. So like of all the aspects of the Divine Mother, it is perhaps like Durga who is worshipped most. So it literally means one who's difficult to approach or difficult to know. That's what Durga means. And so like man is constantly tormented by his own negative thoughts and feelings. and so they have to be rooted out. So by like worshiping Durga, you know, the spirit, the spiritual aspirant, you know, invokes her strength to help annihilate all desires and allow the divinity within to unfold. So what I wanted to just share and why I'm expressing this is that, you know, like all of these different deities that we see commonly displayed with throughout all these religions are these manifestations of Godhead, you know, like of divinity itself. So, you know, when you talk about the Shakti energy and stuff like that, it's not just limited, like we all in one way or another, you know, are devoted to, and we you know, devote our time and attention and energy to these different aspects of creation. So really being able to like devote it to these deities, they're just these forms that are representative of the formless. So I just wanted to say that like, you know, like it's like all of these deities and stuff like that that we can look to, like, and what I've learned so much more about them is that it's not like, you know, you are worshiping this material thing for the material aspect of it, but it's because you can only do that. Like you can only direct your energy towards something that is material in form to then honor the divine. So it's kind of like, you know, we use these different tools, like, you know, as Rachel was saying, like, you know, like these decks and stuff like that to connect with that which is actually immaterial, you know, like that which is actually within, you know, but like we look without, and we need to do that in order to actually connect with like what's within. So it's like, you know, I just wanted to put some of that in perspective, that, you know, like a lot of different ways that we can, why I even brought this up to begin with was because you were talking about like, you know, like this worship of like, you know, the divine feminine, Brendon, like what you were talking about. And it's just like, you know, we can see this with so much of that, you know, like pure, you know, yoga in of itself, like, you know, is like devotion of the divine mother. Like, you know, like it is like, that is like, you know, it, in its purity. And, you know, it's like the worship of the divine mother and like, you know, of the divine feminine, like I think it enters into all these aspects of our lives, because truly it's like, you know, like it is the worship of nature, of like, you know, like creation, you know, like the creative energy made manifest, like, you know, within this plane of existence. So like it's so cool to just be able to bring ourselves to see that it's just like, you know, that really we are appreciating that which is beyond the form itself, but we need to kind of like concentrate that energy, or, you know, bring it into form. Like, you know, like it's all about like the form and the formlessness. And, you know, how can we come back to a state of union within ourselves to be able to actually like, you know, come back into that which is light. But, you know, like it's like we need to journey through the darkness that like is all around us in order to enter back into that. Or, you know, it's like we need to find our way back to that which we are. But, you know, it's like it's only through the journey of becoming that we find that. And the journey of becoming is literally like, you know, this playing out of all these energies that is within this matrix of creation, you know, like it is within this reality. So yeah, I don't know, I know I just touched upon a bunch of different things, but it's because so much like has come up in the course of this conversation, and I just wanted to share, express, because like I'm definitely done now. I wanted to express like, you know, my gratitude and appreciation for being part of this call again. Like it always like allows me to just like really like bring all of this stuff up to the surface. And, you know, like I think that's what we're all doing. You know, we're bringing the consciousness, like bringing that which is unconscious, like, you know, to our consciousness, so that we can then like, you know, become more conscious, and like you enter back into that state of being like, you know, the dreamer within the dream, and not just unconsciously participating in this reality, but being able to play a part in the healing and upliftment of consciousness here on earth, which is like, you know, that reunification with the divine, which is, you know, like the power of love within ourselves that can help transform this world. And it helps we do that by transforming ourselves, and we bring that to the world without. So I love all of you, and thank you for allowing me to be here and share.
Awesome. Kris, thank you again, man. And yeah, that's great. Just being able to listen to you. You got people are like, be like, that Kris, man, he's like a philosopher wizard. Is that what Ashley called you? Wizard philosopher? Yeah. We're all wizard philosophers, so no, good practice though. All right, okay, let's keep passing the talking. Stick around again. We're pretty much close. So David Blair, will pass it over to you, and then David, did you want to go after that? Is that you're cool? All right, okay, cool, man. All right, okay, so we're gonna pretty much after David, anybody else who wants to jump in for real quick, and then we'll coordinate with Rachel, and Rachel's gonna sing us a song. I assume. I don't know. It's a surprise, maybe. Rachel, sorry, David, go ahead when you're ready. you can unmute yourself and jump right in. Go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, Brennan, just a couple last thoughts building off of what you said, and Kris as well, kind of with the whole knights in armor, shields and swords and all that good stuff. For me personally, growing up, I had kind of a father who was very much a man's man. Boys are not allowed to cry. They're not allowed to show their emotion. They have to keep everything held within themselves. So I kind of took a fear of that, and I very much shunned the masculine side of me and very much blossomed into the feminine, so much to the point that I was very, very in tune with the divine feminine in its entirety, but I wasn't balanced. And I wound up getting out of touch with that divine feminine due to all of the hurt that it can open you up to, because you are on a much higher emotional level. And after being hurt enough times and being open and exposed to that in that way, it wound up shutting me down to where I had all of these layers of armor that I had on just to protect myself, and kind of became identityless. Didn't really have much of a divine feminine or masculine. It was just, hey, stay safe and keep yourself protected no matter what. And it did take having a really good partner, someone that I could trust implicitly with all of my being, to help shed those layers of armor, to give her the sword, to be there, to be the protector and be the one to support us, while I'm able to help rediscover myself and bring myself back into that harmony and balance between the two sides. So, like I said, Brendon, with what you were saying, it definitely takes a very strong level of trust to being able to trust that partner implicitly like that, and being able to shed those layers of armor.
Wonderful. David, thank you for sharing. And absolutely, again, even just by sharing that story, I think all of us relate to it within our own personal level in our own ways. So thank you, David. Awesome. All right. I'm going to get close. Let me just double check. Anybody else want to jump in real quick? Ashley? Yeah, just for a little, just a smidgen. Go for it.
This is Smidgen. First, just offer up my gratitude for this space and being able to hear from men and women and all their perspectives on the divine feminine. Yes, I too could talk about it for a million bajillion years, but just as a last little consensus for resources, if people are interested in looking into this further, whether men, women, anything in between or outside of Holy Grail Mysteries, Sophia, Mary Magdalene, Isis, Mystery Schools, Womb Religions. That is going to be your motherfucking hub. Okay, this is the book I'm reading right now that I'm just like, I just love. It's called The Magdalene Mysteries, The Left-Hand Path of the Feminine Christ, because the Christ is a title. It's a consciousness, and we probably will have to do like the divine marriage and like the aspect of that union. And just again, men, here to support you, here to love you on your journey, and women as well. And much love and thank you.
Awesome. Thank you again, Ashley, for joining in. And yeah, just thank you everyone so much for being a part of this discussion. This has been incredibly powerful. And again, as Kris is saying, you know, through these discussions, we get to make the unconscious conscious. We get to give things the opportunity to rise, to be seen, to be heard, to be loved, to be healed, to be expanded. So by everybody here, by you listening to this broadcast, by you being present in itself, the mere act of listening is a very kind of like feminine, divine feminine energy. So thank you for practicing that. And again, I think moving forward from beyond this broadcast, I think it's valuable for us to be able to begin to acknowledge the characteristics of these energies within us, and then to be able to consciously, not unconsciously, perhaps repress them, so to speak, or to perhaps notice when there is balance that could be that may be something we need to be able to bring attention to. I think again in a lot of ways, and whether or not maybe this is still something I don't know for sure yet, but it's just an idea that I'll just say right now that I feel there is some degree of truth to it, where I feel that again, you know, like a lot of like the behavior that we recognize as you know, like toxic and unhealthy on both the masculine and the feminine sides of character, of you know, of just doing things. I feel like those character traits are a result of something that is not healed. I don't think that like those traits are literally, oh, that's just who we are. Like that's just, we're just dumb people who, you know, like I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but like you know, we're just people that do like, you know, horrible things and stupid, you know, and all this and stuff like that. But again, I feel like those actions are a result of something that is not healed within ourselves. And so again, I think as we move forward, let us pay attention to perhaps the parts of our own energy that maybe we repress, or maybe that come up in behavior where we have the opportunity to become self-aware of it. And if you see yourself doing something that doesn't really fit, that doesn't sit well with you, you know, look at that and be like, you know, like why did I act that way? Why did I like snap at one of my friends because they said something? Why did I feel so quick to be able to, you know, like put my voice in and do something that maybe now I'm kind of like second guessing and stuff like that? And look at those parts of yourself, because I think when you start getting curious, which again is, I feel, a very feminine aspect, this idea of kind of like curiosity, you know, looking at the layers of things, you'll begin to see that in itself is, you know, oftentimes a result of something within ourselves that we need to be able to bring more love to. And so I feel that moving forward, again, it is this journey of being able to cultivate balance, cultivate wholeness, and then through this we have like the healthy characteristics of the divine feminine and the divine masculine, both nurtured and supporting each other within a shared experience within each and every single one of us, and together rising as a dyadic cyclone, rising as a union, rising as a pair. So it's not literally this thing where it's like, oh, the divine feminine is rising and they're like, you know, and it's like, oh, there goes the divine feminine. It's like, and then the divine feminine is like, see you guys later, like, peace out, like, we're out of here. And then the divine masculine is just like, what? Like, what about us, right? So it's like, you know, as the water rises, so does every ship. As the divine feminine rises, it rises the divine masculine with it. The divine masculine has just like obviously been kind of like risen, but even still, it hasn't really been risen. It's just been sort of dominating. But even still, you know, now is a chance for us to kind of like reset things, to redo things, to start fresh in some ways. But again, I think being able to start fresh as we heal simultaneously is very powerful, and then just continuing to rise in that marriage, in that union together is the story that is unfolding before us. So thank you, every single one of you, for you know, nurturing the divine feminine wisdom within yourself, for nurturing the divine feminine archetype within yourself, male, female, gender fluid, whatever. Again, I think even for a lot of us, as we continue to evolve, we naturally begin to understand that within each of us, we kind of carry this natural fluidity, you know, however you choose to relate to that word, where it's like, yeah, okay, I'm in a male body, but like I have masculine characteristics, but absolutely there's parts of myself that are, again, kind of like coming from that divine feminine energy. But even in my own mind, it's kind of gotten to the point where, again, you know, those labels are literally just what we use to kind of define opposite ends of a spectrum. Literally at the point where I'm at, like, I don't look at my characteristics and get really nitty gritty and be like, oh, that's a very masculine thing, that's a very feminine thing, unless it's something that's kind of like out of balance. Then I'm like, oh, I probably should look at that. But when I'm just kind of being myself and I'm coming from this very kind of like, you know, place of service and excitement and altruism and just being taken care of and of myself, the energy that I'm expressing is something that is both masculine and feminine. And I don't know what the word is for that. Like maybe there is a word for that, you know, like to like, is that kind of where we're moving towards, like where it is like kind of like this shared kind of energy, universal energy? I don't know. Like I feel like there should be a word for that, where it is through the story of duality that we acknowledge that these two energies are opposite sides of the spectrum, but when they balance through the middle, does that energy become do we give it a new name? And is that energy just love? Is it just life? You know, I feel like it is, you know. So anyways, getting close to wrapping this up, and we're going to pass over to Rachel. Sorry, Rachel, if I... Go ahead, Rachel, when you're ready. I didn't... Were you waving at me? Was that
No, I was
celebrating
saying yes
me?
to what you were
Oh,
saying.
okay.
Very excited about what you just
Okay.
said. I was like, yes.
Cool,
yes.
cool, cool. What do you think, Rachel? Is there a name? Is there is there like a name for that?
I think love is great. I
called
think
love,
that's
yeah.
it. Love
That's a great way of putting it.
is like love is what the masters in throughout history, all of the ascended masters were here to teach us, was love, and like love within ourselves, and that we have the capacity of that. I feel like gosh, I could go on about this, so I feel like I shouldn't, but I feel like love is like, again, it's a construct, but like there's so many layers behind even that word love. Like it's it's a name we use to describe something that, like, I feel like transcends the physical. Like it isn't, love isn't a physical thing. It's very much like this like spiritual concept, but like you could also use it to describe us as physical beings that, like, I don't know, there's so many things. Like we are love, and like we are all just love, and yes, and coming together, and like that we were just actually in the YouTube chat talking about the rainbow and the rainbow wave, but also the rainbow connection. Like when your spiritual purpose is realized in the physical world, that is the rainbow connection. And so, I mean, I feel like that all ties in together too. And like, I almost feel like you can't put a label on it, because when we do reach that harmony between the two, then there would be no need for labels, if that makes sense. I don't know.
I think
Like
it does.
that's like,
Yeah. It's like what are you?
the
You're
body.
love.
Yeah, we're all just love. Okay,
Sounds
wait. So did anyone else have things to say, or you wanted me to sing
I'll just
now?
I'll just say one thing real quick, just because it's relates to what we were talking about, and then we'll pass it right back to you, Rachel. So this is something that maybe some of you have heard me talk about this before, but for me it just makes a lot of sense. Where when you go back to the yin yang, go back to like this symbol that we've been carrying, you know, even from the beginning of the broadcast, and you look at it, it has the yin and the yang, the male and the female, the light and the shadow, the conscious and the unconscious. The way how I've explained this before is, again, understanding that, you know, you cannot have one without the other, because they are the same side of one spectrum. They're opposite sides of one spectrum. But what I think of is that, like, there is light and there's shadow, there is yin and there's yang, there's male and there's female. But then the circle around the yin yang, that in itself is a thing. And the circle around the yin yang, that is love. Like that is love. So it's not like some people get into this idea where they look at the yin yang and they associate it as being like, they do this, and it's not like, I understand why, but they do it as, you know, like love and fear, you know, good and bad sort of thing. But I think as soon as you do that, where you start kind of like putting things on that style of spectrum, you take away the notion of the idea that love is actually the all-encompassing thing that holds both the shadow and the light, so to speak. So it's like, even within the shadow, that is still love. And that goes back to the idea that the shadow itself is the womb, the matriarch, that inner space, that is still love as well. So again, I think that just kind of like reinforces this idea that, you know, like, what are we moving towards? We're moving towards cultivating balance, cultivating harmony, and kind of like ascending in a kind of like not airy fairy way, the notion of labels to be able to integrate like a healthy union of these energies within us to literally just become the expression of the universe itself. And because that's the thing, right? Like, the universe itself is genderless. Like, is that fair to say? Is the universe genderless, so to speak? It is more of like a ubiquitous thing. It is an all-encompassing thing. So yeah, I think that is kind of like a cool thing to just kind of keep in mind as we move through this journey, is that as we heal the divine masculine and as we heal the divine feminine within each of us, we literally become an even more actualized and crystallized embodiment of love, of the expression of the universe as consciousness. So that's kind of what I wanted to be able to share, and I'll pass it over to Rachel. Rachel, does that make sense? Does that? I saw you were doing heart things. That must have been something good.
Yeah, I was doing everything. Then I had to get up to get water because I was like, oh no, now that it's time to sing, my mouth is all dry. So.
Yeah, that's right. So, okay.
Although, like, everyone else is good though. I don't want to like just.
I believe we're good. Yeah, go for it, Rachel. And then any final last words after this, and then we'll wrap it up. So.
Yeah, I feel like this song isn't so much the divine feminine. It's an Irish song. Um, and it's one that I actually heard all the time while I was studying abroad in Ireland, and I loved it and learned it. Um, but I feel like it really does touch on like the masculine and the feminine. So without further ado, it's The Fields of Athenry. By a lonely prison wall, I heard a young girl calling, Michael, they have taken you away, for you stole Trevelyan's corn, so the young might see the morn. Now prison ship lies waiting in the bay. Low lie the fields of Athenry, where once we watched the small furry birds fly. Our love was on the wing, we had dreams and songs to sing. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry. By a lonely prison wall, I heard a young man calling, nothing matters, Mary, when you're free. Against the famine and the crown, I rebelled, they cut me down. Now you must raise our child with dignity. Low lie the fields of Athenry, where once we watched the small furry birds fly. Our love was on the wing, we had dreams and songs to sing. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry. By a lonely harbor wall, she watched the last star falling, as the prison ship sailed out against the sky. Sure she'll wait and hope and pray for her love in Botany Bay. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry. I cut it short. I cut off the last chorus because I figured you already heard the chorus twice, but I felt like it was an appropriate song for how I was feeling in the energy tonight with the masculine and feminine, and also my Irish heritage too was coming out a little bit there. My Irish ancestry, that is. Anyway, thank you for letting me sing because I always love an opportunity.
Absolutely. And honestly, again, like even just like seeing your smile there, Rachel, I think is a very powerful representation symbolically of, again, kind of like the divine feminine in their nature, where again it's like
I actually got major like
spine tingles. Yeah, like activation sensation.
Especially
right.
at the part where I was singing about now you must raise our child with dignity. It was like, I don't know, I just had like this crazy.
Yeah, I was probably like tapping into
yeah, I felt it.
Yeah, I was probably tapping into like primordial energies where it's just like, oh, this is bringing me back like memories of a past life and being that, you know, archetype and family and baby fever. So yeah, so the baby fever. Hey, guys get it too, man. It's a cool thing. But what I was just gonna say is like again, literally just like Rachel, just seeing Rachel in this moment, just kind of like, again, smiling. Like, why? But because again, like here we have created this space as a community, and also again, you know, I acknowledge that as masculines we are helping hold this space where it's just like please, like, sing us a song, like, and they're like, oh, I would love to sing you a song, I would love to express myself. And again, it's very much like this creative energy. So it's that's what I'm talking about, of being able to sort of like see the beauty of the divine feminine in action, and then to be able to celebrate it. The world needs more of that. The world needs more of that. And that's where, again, that was part of the intention of this podcast. And I actually wanted to ask even Ashley and anybody else, because I was going to mention this earlier and I just forgot. Some of you would have seen, I actually posted a little bit of a video today where I was the literal video was just like, hey, this is like a thank you to all of the conscious female creators on TikTok. Like, it was literally just like, this is like a genuine from my heart to all the women on TikTok creating like spiritual content. Like, thank you. Like, that video is literally going viral right now, like as we speak. And I just feel like I don't know, like, I might be the very first person on TikTok to literally create a video that is like specifically doing that is specifically kind of like addressing that specific notion. And I honestly, I encourage and invite, and I don't, challenge isn't the right word, but I invite people to, specifically masculine, but also feminine, to literally create posts of like gratitude for the feminine. Because I think, like, just like the absence of that, it's like they're almost used to not being celebrated, as sad as that sounds. But what would it mean if more of the masculine literally just started like celebrating the feminine? And I think the feminine will just be like, whoa, like, this is like, I like this, like, I'm gonna show up even more because I know that like you're appreciating the effort that I'm putting into this sort of thing. And it's also like something that is like powerful for the male to be able to express, to be able to do that in a way where, you know, like, again, if this was like high school or something like that, like, someone would probably get like picked on for doing something like that because it's so like anti-masculine or something. But I think it is a very beautiful thing to be able to do that. So I encourage us to be able to consciously perhaps bring that into our content, or at least just our personal lives, our relationship, to be able to express gratitude and to celebrate that divine feminine. And again, in doing that, we're gonna see the fostering of more of this divine feminine energy really rising into their power, where like it's coming out of their heart, and as masculine and again feminine amongst feminine as well, just to be able to be like, yes, like, keep doing that. I like, one of the most powerful things that as men that we can do for women is to be able to like acknowledge to them that we trust their ability to decide what's best for them, and to trust their ability to be able to choose like how they wish to express themselves. Because that's, again, that's kind of like this wounded thing where a lot of the men would be like, no, like, I don't think you can make decisions for yourself properly. I'm going to make them for you. Or I don't like it when you express yourself that way. I'm going to tell you what to do. Where it's like the women are like, yo, like, I've got a song in my heart and it wants to sing. And for the males to be able to be like, please, like, without me having to tell you what to do, I just want to see what you do. And I'm going to create this space for you to do it. Because I think in this process of creating that space, it births something within the divine feminine. It gives them this expression in this space to kind of liberate themselves, and to dance, and to create, and to lead, and to inspire. And that, I think, is, again, kind of like this incredibly beautiful aspect of this divine feminine energy that is rising, that is just kind of like, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful that the divine feminine energy, again, you know, you just think of like seeing a woman like dancing in a very kind of like sensual way. There's a reason it melts our hearts, because I think like on a deep spiritual level, we're actually seeing something that we're like reminded of. Like, it's not just a woman dancing. It's like, whoa, like, this is like something like way deeper. This is like the universal energy that I'm acknowledging expressing itself. It's very psychedelic in a lot of ways, just to see a woman kind of like intuitively connect with that. And again, even for men to be able to connect with that, but usually the women are going to help us kind of like learn how to be able to connect with even the medicine of dancing as well, right? But yeah, Rachel, I was just curious to ask, and then we're going to get right into the end of the episode, and we'll finish off with meditation. Any other closing thoughts and gratitude? We'll go around the circle one last time. When I made that video today, and again, for those of you who haven't seen it, check out my TikTok, and it's just literally, again, this video kind of like thanking female creators and saying like, yes, keep doing it and everything like that. What did you think of that video? Like, how did that make you feel? Because there's a lot of comments on it where women were just like, yo, like, thank you, this is awesome, we need more of this. Any thoughts on that, Rachel, assuming you saw that video?
Actually, I did. I'm very glad that I did see it, because then I would be like, oh no, like, I didn't see it. But no, I did see it. And I didn't comment, but I went through and liked a few of the comments. But I feel like I agreed with a lot of what the other women were saying, in that like it just was like you were coming from this place of like not trying to like it was very much like very humble. Like you weren't like, oh, like it didn't sound like it like this again goes back to what I was talking about, where like the masculine is all about like I know best, like I know things, like, and like it didn't come from this place of like, oh, I know, like it wasn't like, oh, I know how you feel as divine feminine. It was like more of like this, like I am holding space for you as divine feminine. And like that's really all it comes down to, is the holding space. And like this kind of is bringing me back to what you mentioned in the very beginning about the shapes too, though, that the feminine is like the more of like the cup shape, the circle, the curved line, and then the masculine is like a straight line. Like I feel like you almost were like emulating more of like this, the curved line energy of like holding this like space, like holding a vessel, like creating more of like this vessel for women to feel more empowered by the, like, you know what I mean? Like it was more like, I feel like your energy was very like
I was speaking
it
your language.
you just, yeah, it did, it seemed, your energy seemed like you were like tapping into your divine feminine in sharing that video. If I guess that's the bet, that's exactly what I meant to say. Yes, you were tapping into your divine feminine in sharing that video, and you were like emulating more of like this container holding space, instead of like the penetrating like straight line energy of like, here's the facts. It was like, okay, like I'm holding space for you as the divine feminine, and it was really beautiful. And yes, it was a great video. Thank
Sweet.
you for creating that.
Thanks. I hope it's my most viral video ever. Like honestly, I feel like even just as simple as it sounds, like, oh, that's just a TikTok. Like honestly, I feel like seeing that TikTok for some, and I'm not trying to assume this and everything like that, but I think for some women, they're like this gives me hope. Like if he's out there, then like I want more of that. Like I want more men that are kind of like in that same energy. And again, and I said that on behalf of all of the men who again kind of like are holding that energy, because I think again what I said, even if I was the first person to make a video of it, I'm not the only person who feels it, who echoes it. But again, I think the more of us as men who can continue to kind of like you said, kind of tap into our divine feminine and open this expression within our heart and to hold space for the divine feminine, I think that's going to be incredibly powerful. Yeah, I don't know, Ashley, did you have any thoughts on that video? Like I'm not, like I don't know if it's, we can skip, that's fine, we'll skip. Kris, did you have thoughts on that? What I mean, final thoughts for anybody, last time around the circle, for anybody here. But again, I think this has been a great discussion, everyone. So and if you guys are cool, we can even go right into the meditation in a minute. Kris, did you have something to say? Like, did you have your hand up? I wasn't sure.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Sorry, go for it, Kris.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say like I actually didn't get a chance to like watch the entirety of that video, but I think just even judging from like what you guys were talking about, like I feel like I can ascertain, like, and what you were just saying, like just really like tapping into like, more of that like femininity within ourselves. And I think that like the last kind of closing thoughts that I wanted to just say, like, like within that is just that, like as much as we are like, like encouraging and, promoting that divine, like the divine feminine, like within others, like, like again, like it comes back to that, like, we have both of those aspects within ourselves. So just as you were tapping into that, like, for that video, into that divine feminine kind of energy, it's like, I think we can ask ourselves, like, as beings, like, like both male and female, like, like how can we tap into the energy that is not like needing to be controlled so much, but we are like being more allowing for like, spirit's guidance, like, really just to flow through us. So, like, we're receiving and we're being that open conduit where we're like holding space for the divine, like feminine within us, literally. Like we're literally like holding space, like to be receptive and to be like receivers of information, instead of just looking outside of ourselves for all of these different answers, or like just projecting whatever it is like onto others, like, from our past, or, like from like our wants and stuff like that. Instead, like, like allowing this kind of like free flowing kind of like creative energy to kind of like come from within us. And I think that, that comes from this like like it's so much more intuitively based. And I think that like, like in a lot of what I share and a lot of the messages that I do, like I feel like I do tap into that kind of like, feminine kind of energy of just, like allowing whatever I feel is coming up in the moment to come. So I think that's something that can be really beneficial for like, creators of all kinds, like, to do, is really like tapping into that, like the free flowing energy of being able to speak like in the moment and being able to speak from the heart, instead of coming from this place of like, oh, like, like have this information and it's because this person said it, and like that's what makes it valuable and that's why you should listen to it. Instead, it's like this, like being able to share things like that come from the heart, where people can see you like in your vulnerability, like, and I think that that whole idea of like, just tapping into that idea of vulnerability and openness, it's not this like contracted kind of closed like space, but rather it's like open and expressive. And it's like, like it is those like free flowing like waters, like, like that energy of just kind of like allowing things like that are coming to the surface, like, to come out. Like, it's like the repressed energy within males so often, like, is that energy of just like not feeling like they can express their femininity in so many ways, like, because they feel like that's like something that women wouldn't like. And even what Ashley was saying before is like, women actually do like love that and stuff like that. So it's being able to kind of like step out of these like paradigms that are like created by the mind. Like, it's literally like these limiting beliefs and these constraints like that are kind of put upon us like but from society and stuff like that, that says like, like for men to, and even what David was saying before too, like, like when men like typically like, are like expressive and they like let out their emotions and stuff like that, like it's just kind of like, it seems like they may be shamed amongst like other men and stuff like that. But it's really being able to hold space for all of this like open expression of like, feeling, and like, tapping into that realm, instead of just like kind of being so in the opposite sense of like not tapping into our emotions and holding those things back. Like, I think it's really about being able to open up and to tap into the feminine energy, like you did, like, within that video, in order to kind of like show people and to show the way of openness and vulnerability that, like, comes from, it comes from the heart and not the mind that wants to try and control reality. And yeah, being able to tap like into that energy a lot more. So yeah, I guess just my closing like things are the same that I said before, is that like, I love each and every single one of you, and I'm just grateful to be a part of this discussion. And yeah, like I just had those things come up because I just think that it's, yeah, important for us, like, as creators, to be sharing and speaking from the heart and from like our emotions, and allowing that to be seen, instead of just kind of like trying to speak things that have already been said. Like, like it's really birthing something new. And I think that like that's the whole idea of like, like the feminine energy in of itself, is that like, it gives birth to something new. And in order to create something new here on earth, we need to be tapping into that energy that is like, bringing forth like these new ideas and thoughts that come to the surface, that like aren't a resultant of us like questioning and doubting ourselves so much, but it's like the wisdom of the heart that like that we can all tap into. And yeah, I just wanted to say that. So yeah, I love you all. I'm done now. I feel complete.
Awesome. Thank you, Kris. And yeah, I really appreciate again, just the leaders amongst us, particularly again, just the fellow men who are joining us here. Because again, I feel that like each of us in our own way do just kind of like already honor and carry the divine feminine within each and every single one of us. And this old paradigm would say, oh, doing so would make you weak, but in fact, doing so actually makes us stronger, for each of us, for each of, the people who are listening to this. But particularly like, because I've noticed that with Kris, where like Kris and I get along because Kris and I kind of have like this similar style where we are just kind of like very much kind of like in tune with our emotional awareness, and we like talking about our feelings and everything like that. And again, I feel for David and David as well. I just haven't gotten to know you as well, but I feel again it's kind of like this similar thing where all of us have kind of like been well along our process of integrating this divine feminine energies and archetype. And I'll just say real quick, and then we'll get into our closing meditation or any other quick closing thoughts, is that going back to the video that I made, and again, Rachel just kind of talking about what it meant to her, but then also what it meant to me to be able to have that reception was incredibly powerful. I didn't really know what to expect when I made that video. I'm like, I hope they like it. I hope, you know, like, I think it's pretty good. It's coming from a genuine place. And but then to see the comments, and there's a bunch of comments I haven't even read yet. You know, I'm looking forward to reading them and replying to them. But here I am, you know, doing something that it was, for me, it wasn't outside of my comfort zone. It wasn't that radical. And I think the fact that it almost seems as if it's radical kind of tells the story of where we're at. But also points to the idea that this is what we need more of. But for me, to be able to openly express kind of like my feminine quality aspects of myself, and then to have other feminine, you know, carriers of that energy literally celebrate me in doing that is actually very, very empowering. And to be able to feel that, I think, again, I think is something that can be kind of like reflected within the microcosm and the macrocosm of society as well. And, you know, how can we do that as leaders? How can we do that, you know, in the future? How can we do that with our peers as well? So I love the idea that Kris was saying about the birthing process, and we'll just mention this and we'll get close to wrapping it up. That has always been a very, very powerful element of the divine feminine. And again, you know, for males, we birth things too. We birth things all the time. We birth both male and female, but again, you know, we birth ideas, we birth projects, we birth relationships, we birth visions, you know. So again, I think just being able to understand that, again, going back to this idea that like we as males, like we literally are feminine. We literally are the female. We carry everything that the female has. Maybe this is, I don't know, I'm just thinking off this. Maybe I'm wrong in saying this, but like almost everything that the female has, we have too, but we've just suppressed it, you know? And now being able to understand that it's there actually gives us this ability to kind of tap into this power as birthers. But what do the males birth? Again, we birth art, we birth vision, we birth community, as well as females as well. And I think it's a very powerful thing for men to be able to consciously think about the things that they want to birth into this world, to be able to help make it a better place, and to honor that kind of gestation process and that incubation process. And I think that's a lot of what the feminine does. It's like, oh, this is more than just an idea. This is something that must be incorporated and embodied. You must bring it into you in order to be able to receive it, in order to be able to sit with it, in order to be able to feel it, in order to be able to heal it, in order to be able to grow and to be inspired. So this has been a beautiful conversation, everyone. And again, I know we're already way past our original duration, but obviously stay tuned. Come back next week for part 2 of Spiritual Wisdom of Divine Feminine. No, I don't know, but we'll have to. I think if you guys want to, we could do the Divine Masculine, because I'd be curious to just kind of create space to hear what that sounds like, right? You know. But yeah, thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. Let me just do one last check before we move into our closing meditation. Anybody else want to jump in with any just like closing thoughts of gratitude even before we finish off with the meditation? You guys are welcome to. And yeah, David, go right ahead, dude. Any closing thoughts, gratitude? Go for it, man. Thanks again for.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody today for this. This was absolutely divine, pun intended. This was really great, and I look forward to seeing you guys again later. But this was just a wonderful thing. I feel like everybody, including in the chat, everybody's been so open and receptive and listening. And that's it. Just thanks, and thanks for making this happen, man.
Awesome, David. Thank you as well, man. And yeah, looking forward to being able to connect further and support what we're creating here together as a team. Quick reminder as we get into the end, refresh this link if you're watching this live, and you can find the links to the creators from this episode that were on air, so you can make sure you're following them and support them on their channels as well. So anybody else real quick before we move into the meditation? It's just going to be a regular standard meditation. Okay, let's move into our meditation, and then we'll wrap up this broadcast and go run around in our bare feet underneath the moonlight. So I don't know, that's what I want to do. All right, so for everybody here, when you're ready, just go ahead, set things up so that you can just kind of close your eyes and just join in for a little bit of meditation. This is just kind of like standard meditation. For those of you in the YouTube chat, just kind of leave the chat for a second. And so, just taking a moment here, just allowing yourself, when you're ready, go ahead and close your eyes. And as you listen to my voice, just allowing yourself to bring awareness to your breath. Soft, gentle inhales and soft, gentle exhales. And as you breathe here, just acknowledging even the breath itself carries with it the archetype, carries with the patterns. Breathing on the inhale, if you want, you can choose to associate that with the divine feminine energy. Releasing on the exhale, if you want, you can honor that as a divine masculine, the two sides, the yin and the yang, understanding that we literally carry both within us, within each and every single breath. So just straighten up your spine, open your shoulders, relax your face, put your hands in a comfortable position. And as we bring awareness to our heart, to this gratitude that we've been carrying with us since the very beginning of this broadcast and beyond, you can gently put your hands on your chest if you want. And just go back to the visualization of all of us just standing in that, just being in that circle right from the beginning of the discussion. Just imagining all of us and just taking a look around. And just seeing the faces, the people we've heard, the people in the chat, the people who are listening to this afterwards, and just honoring them, thanking them for showing up. Literally, just by you listening to this conversation, you continue to just be able to level up. You take part in a very important conversation. You literally help carry with you the expansion of consciousness as you listen, as you learn, as you grow. So take a moment here to just kind of honor everyone, see their face, smile at them, thank them for doing the work, thank them for honoring the divine masculine and feminine within all of us, within all beings, honoring the love. Visualizing here, you can imagine all of us just kind of standing up in this moment and just slowly coming together for a nice big group hug, if you wish to imagine this. And just take a moment here to just imagine all of us standing together in this hug. And just feeling the presence of this community, feeling the love of this team, feeling the inspiration we are creating together. Showing up, doing the work, like showing up as like fierce spiritual warriors, like showing up to be able to make the unconscious conscious. This isn't no like spiritual like fluff show or anything like that. Acknowledging like the work, the real work that each of us is doing, that each of us is carrying, that each of us is here to be able to help do. So just imagining right now, you can add a physical sway to your body, just a little bit of left and right. And just imagine just kind of like this group hug, just breathing like an organism. So just feeling this sway of this group hug. And we'll just take a moment here. I'm going to stop talking and just allow yourself to speak words of kindness to the team. And to also be able to hear kindness, to hear words of inspiration. And even right now, maybe even just connecting with the divine feminine within your heart right now. What does it say to you, or what do you want to say to it? So just take these next few moments to speak to the members of the community, but to also maybe just speak with the divine feminine within your heart. Practice listening, practice speaking. Go ahead and just be here just for a few moments as you continue to imagine us just kind of in this group hug together. Beautiful. And so in this moment, as we get ready to conclude this practice, conclude this broadcast, conclude this gathering, this sacred space, something that came through in my heart, both something I said and something that was said, is just the words of just, and the feeling of being proud of others, being proud of those who are here to take part in the real work. And so just allowing ourselves to be able to feel, when we think of being proud, what does that mean? I think being proud is, again, kind of seeing us step into our destiny. And so when we feel the divine feminine kind of like speaking to us in our heart and being like, oh, like, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. What does that mean? That means you're doing the work and you're showing up. And you're showing up for something bigger than yourself. So for each and every single one of you that are listening to this, you're doing the work. And so on behalf of the wisdom of the divine feminine within my own heart that I honor. I'm proud of you. Thank you. Just deep gratitude. So just imagine all of us hugging in this circle, and you can physically just hug yourself right now. Just give a little bit of a squeeze to yourself right here. Yeah, go team. And gently release when you're ready. Slowly taking a picture of this within your mind, allowing yourself to return back to this space at any time. Gently bringing awareness back to your physical body. When you're ready, slowly open your eyes. Wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, and return your awareness to the space around you. Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you again, everyone, so much for being here and for supporting this space that we are creating together, for helping facilitate, for helping hold it, for helping honor it. It has been an honor. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, we'll close off the broadcast in the next moment. Any final words of gratitude that anybody else just wants to pop in before we, or any message that maybe came through from Mother Goddess, from the divine feminine, even just within that moment, or even if you just want to tap into it within your heart? Closing thoughts, closing messages. You guys are welcome to share anything. You guys good? You guys good? Cool. I like that. That's a good message. Silence and stillness. Oh, okay. I see what you did there. I'll learn from that. Very clever. I'll take notes. All right. Okay. Beautiful. Well, thank you again, everyone, so much for joining in. Again, the story continues through the love that we share. Tune in again for future team podcasts that we do Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can check out the recordings also on MP3 in the show notes, and also be sure, if you listen on iTunes, you can find us at Paradigm Shift Radio, so that you can listen on the go conveniently. Like this video on YouTube, please feel free to leave a comment, invite your friends, and be sure to connect with all the creators on this broadcast. And again, special thank you to our Patreon supporters who help make this broadcast possible. If you've enjoyed this broadcast and you're like, hey, I'd love to be on air for a future team podcast, be sure to check out more about becoming a leading member, and you can join on Patreon there at the $11 a month. And thank you so much, and please feel free to connect to our team chat as well, and we will be back here again for more team podcasts that we and each one that we do, I can just feel the consciousness expanding, and I'm really excited about what we're moving into together, and it's because of us, because of what we are showing is possible. So thank you for helping lead the way, for helping lead the shift. So on behalf of myself and the rest of the team, and for everybody here, thank you so much for showing up. And for everybody here, go ahead and gently unmute your microphones and join me in making some ridiculous wolf noises or something like that as we send some love to all the amazing people who are tuned into this broadcast one more time. So everybody here, thank you, everyone. We love you. Send them some love. We love you guys. Awesome. All right, thank you again, everyone. You guys can gently mute yourself. I'm just bringing up the outro music, and as always, keep it shifty, and we will see you in the future. Peace and wholeness. Special thank you to Danny Leonardo, whose music is featured at the beginning and end of this podcast. Be sure to check out more of Danny's work in the YouTube info below. Thank you, Danny.